Not quite there. Okay. We are live. So welcome, DJ. Today I have Yukon Strong on the show, and we're going to be discussing Alberta separation. And I guess my first question right out of the gate, because I don't really do small talk because it bores me, is you're not actually an Albertan.
No, I'm not. And well, actually, you know what? This is the thing. I have a really good response for that, but I'm going to save it for a different venue.
Okay.
The answer's not quite so clear. Um, but first of all, hi Natasha.
Hi.
How you doing? So we're live on TV right now.
We're live right now,
Hi,
and
Mom.
we're live on
Yeah.
X. We're not live on YouTube and Rumble because I can't figure out how to do them all at the same time. So,
You know what I was thinking?
yeah.
Imagine it was like 1987 or like 1992 or something. And
Uh-huh.
like you or I somehow got in front of the camera on like a CBC news bit or something like that. Could you imagine the truth bombs, the mental implosion that would cause to have someone like us just start spitting facts? You know what
So
I mean?
I was actually part of a group that was interviewed in the 90s, the mid 90s,
Mm,
about International Women's Day. And I think it was CTV.
okay.
And I was selected as one of the students to talk to the newscaster, and everybody. We were maybe 30 girls, and all of us except for one said how good we felt living in Canada, and how grateful and how great life was, and how good it was to be a woman,
Yeah.
to be female in Canada. It was amazing. And then one of the girls who came from a very abusive Pakistani background, she said that it was really hard, but that
Mm,
obviously pertained to her individual home life. Everything else was positive. And then I was all excited to watch the news bit at night. And
yep.
then it ended up being like a story about young girls feel dismayed about their future prospects in Canada.
That's what they posted? Oh
Yeah,
my God.
it was
Wow.
very eye-opening. Even when I
Even
was like 13,
yeah.
I could see it.
So that was the whole the narrative. They seize that straw man and go for it. That the first moment that happened to me was actually when I was in Thailand. So I was in Bangkok at the time, and this would have been 2010, maybe 2011, and there was big protests that were going on over
Oh,
there.
oh, sorry. By the way, happy birthday.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'm old balls now. Um, so anyways, there was the red shirts and the yellow shirts, and it was pretty much like the urban, peasants, or sorry, the rural peasants and the urban elites. And there really is like some subtle class culture over there, like northern ties and southern ties, like some of the southern ties that I used to train with there when I was fighting. They would be like sometimes ashamed to talk because their dialect was considered like kind of lowly, you know what I mean, compared to the elite caste or whatever. So there's this sort of cultural divide there, which is very similar to Canada. We have cultural divide between the urban and rural big time here.
Yeah.
And anyways, I was sitting in a pub, just having a beer, hanging out with some friends. We were talking, and the Canadian government was like texting me, you need to shelter in place, you need to come home. Thailand is like in danger, blah 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 blah. There was all these protests saying, and it was on the BBC, actually was the newscast that was on the bar screens, and they were showing like all this burning and violence and stuff, and we were literally like across the street from in the square from where the protest was, and they were just all sitting there peacefully cross-legged. The big moment of the day, we were just watching it play out. They took some chicken blood and they sprayed it on like the parliament door, and that was it. Like it was that was my first time when I realized the news was completely fake. Like just
Yeah.
not even, they take an element of truth, and just like what you said, they twist it to whatever the political means are of the day. And yeah, it was just wild. And I came home, I told my family about it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, they didn't really take it too seriously, but they take it pretty seriously now because
Yeah.
everyone's being manipulated emotionally or through disinformation 24/7 now. So it's a full-time job to keep the truth straight." Mm.
It is. There are many topics that I'm interested in and I don't even comment on because I don't have the time to discern and tease out what's happening. But your anecdote made me think of two things. The first is I actually was in Thailand myself with my ex-husband. I think it was 2011. But
Okay.
they wouldn't let foreigners into Bangkok because there was a protest then, but dozens of people were killed. And so
Okay.
we had to change our trip around a bit. But the
Yeah.
other thing that it reminded me of was the coverage of the Freedom Convoy
Oh yeah. Okay.
with
Here we go.
people
Yeah.
thinking it was, saying that it was terrorists. And in reality, it was bouncy castles and family friendly and people cooking and veterans cleaning monuments and
Hot tubs.
crime going down, hot tubs, people
Yeah.
dancing, people having a good time. And then the
Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful videos and photos from out west at
What?
Coots. Like that was awesome. All the cowboys and the farmers, and then the Americans and Canadians, like so
What?
warm and
Remember
connected.
what was the word at the time they were using? Because it was when the White House was
Was
being
it
stormed. Over.
insurrection?
Yeah, the Freedom Convoy, they were insurrectionists. Like, holy crap, man. Like, just any sort of hysterical, inflammatory statement they could possibly make, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It's not a good
Unfortunately, it
scene.
worked on a lot of people. I was going through my messages today for something else, and I went back to February 14th, 2022, and I had left a voice note on my friend's texting a friend
Mhm.
about a call that I had to Mark Miller's office because he was my MP at the time. And I chronicled this conversation that I was having with the woman. It was a 10-minute conversation. And it was astonishing. She was saying they're terrorists, they're racist, they're,
Oh my
you
God.
know, fringe
Yeah.
minority, we can't stand for this. And anyway, it's giving me flashbacks to all of that. But speaking of fringe, I
Mhm.
get triggered when I use the word because all I think about is a small fringe minority of people with unacceptable views. Remember that speech from Justin? But is the Alberta separation movement fringe? That was my first question.
Fringe or French?
Fringe.
Fringe. No, it certainly is not. And I mentioned this. I was on another podcast the other day with the Sean Newman podcast. And here's the thing: like from a social media perspective, like I am living in rural Yukon, just like a guy all by myself in the middle of nowhere, northern Canada. But I have chosen to become a supporter of Alberta independence. So I could not have picked a more niche audience, right? Like, if I wanted likes, I'd be posting bikini videos or cars or cat videos or something like that. I have chosen a very difficult market to, build an audience around, and my account just keeps growing. So there's no way that it's in any way, shape, or form fringe. And the proof is in the pudding with that, because you have Danielle Smith. She's trying to turn the independence referendum into a multiple choice quiz now. And that to me indicates very real fear. Whatever the polls are saying right
Can
now.
you explain that to people? What that means?
What do you mean about the
The
quiz?
multiple choice, yeah, because they might not necessarily. Why don't you give them an overview of the movement first, and
Okay.
then we can talk about Danielle Smith because you and I are like politicos, but not
Mhm.
everybody who watches is.
Yeah, and this is a great example just how different things are in Eastern Canada from Western Canada. Like we have a whole world going on out here that most people don't know about, right?
Yes, I'm
But
in both. I have a foot in both
Mhm.
worlds, and I have a foot in both worlds in terms of urban and rural.
Yeah.
So it's like clash of different cultures all the time.
Okay, well, let's start with the beginning. Um, I would say most of your audience is acutely aware that there's something very wrong with Canada right now, very truly wrong. And we probably agree on a whole myriad of issues, small government, low taxation, concrete civil liberties, free speech, the right to self-defense, the right to bear arms, the controlled immigration, really standard, just basics, the things that you need to have a nation, like property rights, things of this nature. Um, and over time, I think really in the past, the federal government has had this success, I would say, with the civilian population because we were more or less a unified culture.
Yeah.
We all shared the same values. We liked hockey. Nobody screwed with anybody else, really. There was a bit of it. It started in the '80s with Justin's.
I grew up in my house. We never
Yeah.
locked the door unless we were going away. Literally did not lock the door. And I grew up in a suburb, like a big suburb.
Go look. What was that movie? Michael Moore, Bowling for Columbine. He
Mm.
specifically referenced in that documentary about how just across the border from the United States, no one locks their doors and everybody has guns, right? And
It
he's
was
like,
a
well,
real
why is this?
thing. It
Yeah,
was a real thing. Like, yeah. Now I would
because,
never ever leave. Like now, even if I'm home alone, I lock the door
Mhm,
in the day.
mhm. Oh, for sure. You're crazy if you don't. Um, so yeah, we had a cohesive culture and we all got along and we were all very helpful. We were very polite with each other. And Canada worked up until that point because the government was nice. That's really the only reason that it was working up until that point. But those days are over now. The government is not nice. They have a legal and financial stranglehold on the Canadian citizens now. Um, and, you know, basically the federal government is trying to inject themselves via registries, taxation, restrictions, and or monitoring and censorship at every possible avenue and sector of our society they can, from the internet to they're even trying to make cattle producers now like register their cows, like it's crazy. There's no limit, there's no bounds. You can look at the gun registry, you can look at bill C9, you can look at um bill, what was it, C357 or C347. I think that was last year, just over a year and a half ago now, maybe, where they had an open vote in the House of Commons to amend the Constitution so that our politicians and our government workers didn't have to swear fealty to a foreign
Yeah.
crown. And no, it was wide open, and it failed. Our politicians would rather swear fealty to King Charles, Queen Charles, excuse me, and then swear fealty to the Constitution or the Canadian people or the Canadian flag. And it wasn't a whipped vote. All sorts of parties were voting yes and no on it. And surprisingly, some of Canada's most staunchest conservatives, they all voted to keep the ball rolling with the authority of the crown. And that has been a real problem for me, that.
Yeah. You're really strong on the anti-monarchy stuff. I see it as more symbolic, but I know it's like a bee in your bonnet.
Well, it's not so much, I put it this way: no man kneels to a crown. Right? No free man kneels to a crown. Bottom line is you shouldn't be kneeling to anyone, right?
Well,
And
I mean,
unless you're going to use the
especially
argument for
someone like
God, maybe, but
King Charles, right? Like
Mhm.
it's particularly hard to
Yeah.
stomach that one.
So I, you know, just from a symbolic perspective, I just find it wrong. There was actually the Dawson, I think it was the city council up here. They made a big protest about this. They didn't want to do this. I have tons of friends who work in government. They all, like all the federal employees, they have to swear. It's part of their work contract before they're allowed to be employed. They have to sign this thing and take an oath to the crown. And it's just like, I don't know what good does that do for the people? And more or less ideologically, it means that our government employees are not working for the citizens and they are working to uphold the authority of the government. And whether you want to call that the Crown or Ottawa or the PMO's office or whatever you want, it ain't good for the little people like me and you. And
Yeah.
we got to
Yeah.
change things here. So that's sort of, you know, a part of it. But there's the urban rural divide, and then you have the eastern western divide too in Canada. And you know, I know there's still good Canadians out there in Eastern Canada, like yourself. I have friends out there. Um,
I
and
wouldn't call myself any kind of realistic representation of the average Quebecer or the average Easterner. I'm definitely an anomaly.
well, it's at least in the cities, right? The cities they're out of control, and the cities are out of control in Alberta too. It really is a
Especially
coordinated plan.
Edmonton.
Edmonton, it's no accident that Edmonton is one of the most socialist left wing communities in the country. It's a coordinated effort to change the demographics in the heart of conservative Canada. They're literally trying to delete the resistance, so to speak, I think. But
I
the
think
problem
also,
is,
but it was socialist for decades though, like a long, long, long time, Edmonton. But I think the demographics in Alberta are shifting a lot, not just through mass immigration, like the invasion, but also the same thing happens in the US in red states where people go, to
they
the
flee economically.
sunnier,
Yeah,
exactly, and then they want to turn the red state into a blue state with their
yeah.
values. And then they import their values
Mhm.
socially. They want the economics, but then it becomes also the economics. So everything shifts left. So you
Yeah.
have a lot of new fees like that was happening even in the 90s when I was living in Alberta, that there were just
Mhm.
so many new fees coming in. And I'd meet so many Quebecers there as well. And they all tend, to be leftists.
Well, the Newfies, um, I kind of feel like Newfoundland has got a bit of a raw deal, similar to Alberta, because like if you look at the progression, I think they were the last one to
Yeah.
join Canada, right?
Yeah.
And they were pretty much self-sufficient before that, right? Now they join Canada. What happens? The government cuts off the fisheries. The government cuts off the oil and gas. The government cuts off power generate. Or sorry, Quebec cuts off their ability to generate power because they don't want competition, right? So it's just a perfect example of how the federal government neuters the economy. They deliberately sabotage um, society to build dependency upon Ottawa for survival. And what does this do? It leads to generations of welfare. People can't vote against social benefits because it affects their life directly because there's no way for them to get a job. And so, yeah, you're right. What do? They run out to Alberta to work in the oil patch, right? Because they're sick and tired of sitting around on their ass. So there is actually a growing independence movement in Newfoundland too. It's you can find it on Facebook. I think it's Republic of Newfoundland. They're posting great videos all the time. And I just saw today they had a bit of a win. It was the Bay du Nord, I think it's called. They're getting finally some offshore oil and gas developed out there for Newfoundlanders, which is great. But by the same token, Ottawa is going to take the lion's share of those profits. They're going to restrict the crap out of it. They're going to tax everyone for using, the cleanest oil and gas on earth. It's just if Newfoundland were to leave and develop their own oil and gas resources, they would be independent like Alberta too. And the case for that argument is it's arguable for almost every province in Canada. Every province in Canada has critical minerals of one form or another. They do have the ability to develop forestry, whatever, and create, I think, at least significantly more independence than they have right now. So the bottom line, to sum it up, to explain to everyone out east how the independence movement sprung, is that the federal government has been obviously doing things to us really aggressively since 2015, that have significantly harmed the social aspects of our life. The federal government has been cutting off the economy for almost every province in one form or another. They have been extracting the wealth specifically from Alberta to the tune of it's $47 billion. I use that number because it comes from Keith Wilson. He's very well versed in the economic arguments here. And then on top
You
of that,
mean, I think you mean in transfer payments or?
well, combined, I think that number is combined federal taxes. There's transfer payments, and then you're paying federal tax, GST,
Okay.
carbon tax, industrial carbon tax, all that stuff. When you add it all up, if Alberta were to leave tomorrow, they would keep $47 billion every year.
A year. For
And-
people who don't know, equalization payments came in with Pierre Elliott Trudeau, Justin's father, and what they are essentially welfare exchanges between the productive provinces and the non-productive provinces. So you have a province like Quebec with tons of natural resources, which should absolutely be swimming in money in every regard. But it's a very socialist province, so they don't want to develop all these natural resources. And they just have tons of taxing and spending schemes. And they've created a service economy instead of, a manufacturing powerhouse. And to fund all of the socialism, they receive money
Rob Alberta.
from the productive provinces. So this has been going on, for 50 years. I can't remember the exact year the transfer payments began, but it's been going on a very long time. So I think Western alienation, like it's accelerated. We're in like the late stages of acceleration of an engineered collapse in the last 10 years, but it has been decades of this kind of abuse, I would argue.
Yeah. Well, and that's the economic argument, but there's also, they'll say, well, if Alberta leaves, they're going to be landlocked, right?
Yeah, I
Well,
wonder about
well,
that. I wonder about those solutions to like the concrete issues. Because for people who don't know it, it is landlocked.
okay. Well, here's the thing. So number one, newsflash, Alberta's already landlocked. They're in that position, whether they're in Canada or out of Canada. Number two, they're not just handcuffed geographically, they're handcuffed policy-wise right now. The federal government has complete and total control and the final say over any pipelines or resource development through interprovincial transmission or anything like that. It's literally up to Mark Carney. So if Alberta leaves, two things happen. Number one, you get the Ottawa monkey off your back. And that monkey includes the $47 billion. But number two, you get leverage to actually start aggressively negotiating resource development with Canada, with the United States, and through the United Nations. There's the UNCLOS agreement, because being a landlocked nation around the world, it's not just Alberta that's in this situation. There's countries all over Europe and stuff. And UNCLOS, it's international law that no other nation is allowed to restrict access to tidewater from any landlocked nation. So if Alberta leaves and Ottawa doesn't want to play, they can go through international law to settle this and make it happen through that avenue. But they could also just say, well, we're cutting off the port of Vancouver until you guys give us a pipeline, right? So you have more leverage to develop the economic situation in Alberta.
Yeah, because for
By
people who
leaving.
don't know, like the map of Canada,
Yeah.
then it would need to go way up north, which is just not feasible at all. Our provinces are massive, aside from the Maritimes. They're
Yeah.
massive.
Yeah. So yeah, there's that, and then there's also there's two more arguments that really dig in the ribs of Western Canadians. Is we have no political sway, right?
Yeah.
So the election is decided before our polls close.
Yeah.
Whenever Eastern Canada does it, we can vote for the Tooth Fairy. People say, well, you guys voted for so and so last election. Well, so what? That didn't affect the outcome. It was already decided. Like we don't have a vote out here, and Eastern
Yeah.
Canada never, ever. I've never heard anyone in politics ever seek to rectify that. no matter which party they're in. And finally, there's just, there's just a general snootery, I would guess I would call it. People I interact with in Ontario or other, Eastern or Central Canada provinces, they'll call you the most horrible names for suggesting that independence is a good idea. Ditch Billy, they'll always accuse you of being a racist, whatever. They don't actually have an argument. They just want to try to shame you into silence and shut down the conversation, which is what they do on everything, right? But the bottom line is, I think that everyone out there right now is underestimating how rapidly Alberta independence is rising. Like, there are just like moms and dads and uncles and husbands and wives. They're just like popping up all over the province, everywhere, every single 100% of communities everywhere, just doing random sign-up events to collect signatures to trigger the referendum. There's also a dedicated, full-time sign-up spots in a lot of the major centers. There's dedicated touring points where they have town halls where they're organizing, and I think there is now over 10,000 signature collectors that have been approved. I think it might even be, yeah. I don't want to quote the exact
How
number. I know
many do you need?
they need 167,000, I think it is.
Whew, that's a lot.
But no, it's not really. They're going to blow that out of the water because
Is there a deadline?
Yes, it has to be done. I think the deadline is in April. If I can't remember what the actual deadline is right now.
Okay.
But they're going to make it easy because if you have 10,000 canvassers, right, and each of them only gets 3 signatures.
Oh, somebody added 177,000 are needed.
177,000. Okay, yeah,
Thank you.
that's what it would be. Yeah. But if you have 10,000 canvassers and they only get 3 signatures a week for a month, right? That's 30,000 times 4 is 120,000. So if they're only collecting 3 signatures a week each, they're going to make the goal. And people are collecting 300, 400, 500, over 1,000. There's many of these instances. So I don't know what the exact number is, and we certainly, the folks involved in the movement, we don't want to sit on our laurels. We want to send a message. But they're all carefully crafted, verified by ID, verified Alberta resident, authorized by the person. Like, there's no possible way there's any tampering going on here. It's all supervised by Alberta elections.
So it's not like a federal election.
No. At least the sign up for the referendums there. I spoke with a gal in it was a Twitter space. She was one of the ones who this was 2 weeks ago, and she was one of the ones who was a little bit higher up with the canvassing organizational group. And right now, the limit, she told me, is that Elections Alberta can't get them enough forms.
Wow. Okay.
So it's happening, right? I don't think getting the referendum question is going to be any sort of a real challenge. But that's just the first part of this
going
war.
to, like, how does that work? Because I'm a Quebecer, so I've lived through a referendum.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of controversy around the question because it was like a paragraph long.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, gosh, I should have looked this up before this interview, but it was something about like a sovereignty association. I can't remember the exact language. It was something along those lines. So the feds had a good case in the case of Quebec, the question of saying, the question needs to be more specific than this. Like, what is a sovereignty association? What is that? What would that mean? Really, so who's going to draft the question is my question.
So the question's already been drafted. So first of all, thank you, Quebec, for holding this referendum, because it's directly what allows us to do this today.
We've had 2.
Yeah, it's triggered the Clarity Act.
Yeah.
And a Supreme Court decision that says this is all legal. and that we don't need authorization from anyone else. If Alberta decides to leave and this referendum is successful, Alberta will be leaving Canada. They will kick and scream and fight about it, but end of the day, it will happen. So thank you, Quebec, for doing that. But the question that they've posed is directly taken from the Clarity Act. They only changed one word in it, I think, so that it specifically, if anyone tries to bring up this argument that the question, is unclear, they're going to have a very difficult time because it's cited in the Clarity Act itself.
Okay.
So the question's already been proposed, and then there's the other guys, the Forever Canadian crews, Lukasik and friends. They actually they screwed up. They've already Danielle Smith, if she wanted to, she could use their signature collections from that to also trigger.
I don't know what this means.
So Lukasik, he's
I
an
know who he
Indian.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know who he is, but I don't know the reference.
he's actually French, I think. But they sort of organized a counter protest. They were trying to, be like, Alberta wants to stay in Canada. These guys are a bunch of yahoos. But when he submitted the referendum question, I think it was, do you want Alberta to remain a province in Canada? He actually, out of stupidity and ignorance, proposed a referendum question on independence. So even if the Alberta Prosperity Project question were to fail, which it won't, his referendum's already been certified and approved, and it is a referendum question. So Daniel Smith could just be like, okay, we're going to have a referendum on this. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be any sort of controversy whether or not the question happens, but there is controversy now about how the referendum is going to play out. And there's
Why
three.
don't we get into some of the main let's steel man separation. So why don't we get into some of the main I guess logistical issues that would come up? So what about money?
Okay. Oh, like if Alberta were to
Yeah,
separate.
because
Okay. So
even people who are enthusiastic about it will say, "Oh, but yeah, the economy, and money and central
right.
banking and what's going to happen and what are we going to do about the debt and this and that."
Yeah.
And we don't have to get like too much into the weeds, but just generally, like, what is the vision of the separatists?
Okay. So, well, let's start. And this is a good question you brought up, because you do get a lot of people who are unfamiliar with the movement. They come into the comments and they're like, you guys don't even know what you're talking about. We got you. They have no idea how well this is all planned out already. The Alberta Prosperity Project has a huge document they developed, and they just took basically a financial snapshot of where Alberta's at, last year, and proposed exactly what you're saying. What if we were to do this? And basically, from a simple economic perspective, there would be no cuts to any services, no firings, layoffs. All existing public services would remain exactly intact, exactly funded as they are today, but there would be at least a surplus, I believe, of $20 billion a year on top of that, just with everything. And that would cover, their own RCMP, their own pension plan, like everything to the nines, completely covered, and there would be a massive surplus left over at the end. So much so that one of the serious changes to the taxation model that they're discussing is an end to income tax altogether. And instead, what they're going to do that, or what they're going to replace that with, is instead a sales tax, which is highly advantageous to the average citizen, because it allows you to choose when, where, and how much taxes you're going to pay. You're always going to have to pay, for food and energy and stuff like this. But, if you can't afford a big fancy F-150 truck, that's, $100,000 now, you buy yourself, something from the used market, and you skip all those taxes, right? And you can live, sort of a staunch and, a really, what would you call it? a simple life, I guess, for 5, 6, 7 years, and live off macaroni and cheese if you wanted to as a young man, and build a financial portfolio in that whole time, because you're getting your full paycheck now, right? It's an overnight 30 to 40% increase in pay, and that allows you to build a financial portfolio, which allows you to be financially independent. And then, okay, now you can afford that big F-150. And this is how countries like Dubai, or sorry, UAE, operate. They have no income tax. They have the best healthcare in the world. They have fantastic public services. And
But they also have like a slave population.
yeah, that's true, I guess. Yeah. But I don't think I don't think that their society is based upon that. They still have the money to fund whatever they
I
want to
think
do.
they drastically cut some of the problems, I guess, that they had with guest workers, but they
Mhm,
did bring in a lot of cheap labor
mhm.
to build, to build a lot of the infrastructure.
Well,
But they
I would say,
also brought in a lot of talent,
mhm,
and did not give them citizenship, and they don't have voting rights, but they're injecting a lot of money into their economy.
mhm. Well, I can tell you this: the Albertan people are not a slave population. They're probably one of the hardest working, if not the hardest working people in Canada. They produce basically, you can go look up right now GDP per capita in Western Canada, all the provinces and the territories. Western Canadians are the only ones who are above the median in Canada. Everyone else is below the median of Canada. So, I don't want to, sound condescending or whatever
No,
out
it's
here,
just
but
factual.
yeah, we work our asses off. We like to pay our own way, and we're sick and tired of having the government come up our ass. We're done. And I really am starting to feel a disdain, uh, not for the Canadian people, but for the Canadian government. And like, you look at what's wrong in everybody's life, like everybody is just like fighting to make ends meet. Nobody has time to have fun anymore. Everybody is just scrambling to just tread water, and it's
Yeah.
always goes back to the government. Every single issue, that shooting in Tumbler Ridge, that's the government that caused that. It was preventable. They promoted the ideology that led to it. The cops came in. There was previous interactions. There was ways to stop it. They didn't, and now a whole whack of kids are killed for no reason. And there's extreme examples like that, but there's also just like, why doesn't the water work? And cities are like flooding. Why can't we get snow removal working? Why is it like a 2.5 year delay to get shoulder surgery? Like every single problem we have, it goes back to Ottawa, it goes back to taxation, it goes back to a
I
lack
would
of
argue though
constitutional rights.
it also goes back to Canadian socialists, because they're really driving this and enabling this agenda. It's just they won't even to even have this conversation about how badly the state is failing is almost impossible with at least 30% of Easterners, if not more. They just flat out
Mhm.
deny that they deny reality in front of their
Yeah.
eyes.
Oh, for sure.
You can use tangible examples and they'll just still deny. No, healthcare is great. Like, but you just told me that you waited for a day to see someone.
Yeah.
Like I have real world examples of it taking multiple days
People are dying
for
waiting
my
for surgery.
child to get a broken arm taken care of. Like, and oh, well, that's not my experience. Well,
Yeah.
when's the last time you went to the hospital? If you go to a waiting room, see who's in the waiting room. It's not Canadians.
Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
so but to even have the conversation, it's difficult, I think, for Westerners to understand the level of indoctrination and ideological commitment to failure in the East.
It's like a fugue state, right? So
It really
yeah,
is, and it
yeah.
became heightened. Like I've had essentially the same politics for 30 years,
Mhm.
so I've always felt
Which is
alienated.
reasonable politics, right?
Very, very
Yeah,
reasonable. But I've always felt alienated living in Quebec because it's
mm,
a very socialistic province. But it's increased so much, and it kind of hit a fever pitch during the COVID regime.
Yeah.
and people have not, they haven't snapped back. I was speaking to a restaurateur last night, and he said, everybody was just struggling during that period, just trying to keep their doors open. And then the kind of finish line was, when everything lifts, it'll get better. But he said it just never returned. It just never got better.
Yeah. I still can't believe that shit happened. I'll never forget it. But it's just, I guarantee you, the same folks who were calling death to the unvaccinated, they're the elbows up crowd. They're the
Yeah.
same people, booing the Americans at the hockey game.
Yeah.
They're the same people shitting all over our greatest ally. Like every country in the world would absolutely kill to share a border with the United States for the economic prospects alone. And here we have folks just being like, I don't even know what their plan is. You know what I mean? It's like, why you're allowing your dislike for one person to sabotage your economic future for the next 30 years. And
Yeah.
not only that, but our border security, our national security. Right. And actually, we'll talk a little bit about that later on. Don't let me forget, because there was a big Arctic security conference up here that happened last week, and I got some interesting tidbits out of that. There were U.S. military, all sorts of stakeholders up here. It was pretty interesting. I didn't attend, but I had friends who attend who told me some stuff. But yeah, it's folks that have benefited greatly from the economic situation in Canada through governance and socialism, as you said. And this is one of the biggest reasons why, as a Yukoner, I support Alberta independence, because I want Ottawa's expense account cut off. That's it. You guys want to live like that? You guys want to have this elbows up bullshit? You're going to start paying your own way. You're going to start funding all the welfare for all the new Canadians. You're going to start paying the price for the crime, for the lack of policing services. You're going to start cleaning up your own drug problems. It is going to be on you. And
This
we'll
is
see who lives
why
happily ever after.
This is why I am enthusiastic about this movement. People find it confusing because I'm a Quebecer. So why would I want this? Well, it's because the money is what enables the state to be able to have total control over us, basically. It's what, like, every bad policy that makes my life more challenging, that introduces challenges into my life that don't need to be a part of my life. Almost every single policy is enabled by money that's being transferred from the productive provinces out west.
Yep.
And as soon as that's cut off, it's like, if you have a neighbor who's on welfare and who's using drugs and who's drunk all the time, they're going to wreak havoc in your life.
In the neighborhood.
In the whole neighborhood.
Yeah.
If that money supply is cut off and they're forced to actually become a productive member of society, then, one of two things will happen. They'll either lose their home and no longer be in it and no longer be, ruining your life, or they'll pull themselves up by the bootstraps and become a more productive member of society. But I understand, like, even on election night, so I had been, I know you know this because we talked at the time, but I had been, for people who don't, like, violently arrested. And so I had a TBI, I had a traumatic brain injury. So during the election, I was on a panel, but I wasn't like 100% yet, And even then, I went on the panel and I gave my opinion. And my opinion, looking at Quebec, I looked at the ridings, I calculated it, and I said, unfortunately, the election is already, it's already decided from what I see. And I can't imagine the frustration, not even needing Ontario to come in yet. Like, just knowing the handwriting is on the wall from the ridings in Quebec to and then Albertans, like, I've lived there. So I've lived in Ontario, I've lived in Quebec, I've lived in Alberta. I've traveled to every province except for Prince Edward Island and Newfoundland. I'd like to go to both, just haven't made it. And I've been to Nunavut and the Northwest Territories. I'd like to go to Yukon, and I haven't been there. So I've traveled.
The Yukon.
I've been
We'll
pretty
call it
like
the Yukon. Yeah.
the Yukon. I've traveled pretty extensively. Most Canadians haven't traveled that much within Canada itself. But Albertans are a different breed. They work very hard and they play very hard, and they're warm, and you can make friends when you move there. You know, I was able to make friends. And it's a very different culture. And I think in Canada, we have cultures that are similar to the states that we share borders with. Like I always think that that Montreal is a bit like Boston, and Toronto is a bit like New York, and then the Maritimes are like Maine, you know, and BC is similar to the communist province.
Oregon.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, communist state below it, so on and so forth. And Albertans have that kind of can do attitude that the Midwesterners have, you know.
Their lineage is literally Texans. They drove cattle up, you know, 100 or over 100 years ago from Texas to Canada, and that's literally where a lot of their families come from. So, yeah, it's not a good scene where our country is going right now, and more of the same is going to mean the end of the Canadian people culturally at the very least. So let's go back to
because I have some more questions, like practical questions. Like I'd like to talk about, you know, people use this is what they used in Quebec, but in Quebec it wasn't as much of a potentially contentious issue because our First Nations population is small. It's not in Alberta. So it's bigger. So I wonder like what the solution or the idea of that would be, because people will argue that First Nations have that they negotiate directly with the crown and not with the province. So would they imagine like mini kind of fiefdoms within an independence Alberta, or what does the separation movement imagine?
Okay, so you read my mind. I wanted to go back to more of the practical things.
Yeah.
So we talked about the economic change and the economic plan. That one's already in place. You asked about money. So I think there will have to be a decision made in the interim if Alberta is successful about whether to keep the Canadian dollar or switch to the US dollar. But what I've been trying to heavily promote in the movement is building their own non-fiat resource-backed currency. So that
would be so much better. It would not be a good idea to hitch their wagon to either dollar.
Yeah. So my personal, what I would prefer if I was an Albertan and I was doing this, is I would say, okay, let's switch to the US dollar right off the bat. Number two, let's start getting our own resource-backed currency. And that's not something you can just do overnight, just slowly build it over time. And I would also like to see a crypto element to that too, that's not regulated by the government as well, so that it's just truly an independent, standalone currency that can be invested in or traded in the global markets. And one of the things, like I don't know if you can see the flag on the back of my screen here, but this is the flag of Western Canada. So in the early days of Western independence, this was the flag they came up with. I've made some tweaks to it, but this starts to bring in the argument for Alberta, if successful, to start bringing in other provinces to join them. Saskatchewan will be next, probably interior and northern BC. There's already Wexit signs all over the highway there.
Yeah, you've got to be careful with BC though. It can only be really the interior, maybe the Okanagan. Even it seems that's turning communist as well. Like you don't want to bring them back in.
Correct, but they're like, if you, we should have got this from my post. So
I can look if you want. But I have it. I can look. Anyway, tell me what to look for in your post.
Search my posts for 2022 census. And that is the most recent data, where the census data, they asked if there were support for Western independence. And that shows the regions. One of my followers, he's like a tech savvy guy. He went to the Government of Canada website. He pulled all the census data and then mapped it into a map. And you can see it's Saskatchewan, Alberta, interior and northern BC, and then up into the Yukon. It's like
Okay,
this.
sorry. I'm there now. So what do I search?
Search for 2022 census data.
Okay.
Should pop up, and there'll be a picture of Canada, a map, and I superimposed the flag. Excuse me.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Let's bring it up. We'll add it to the stage. This one?
there you go. Yeah, that's it. So this is what I'm talking about. So if Alberta were to seek a petrodollar or an energy-backed non-fiat currency, bringing in the Yukon, bringing in the BC, now you have critical minerals, more oil and gas, gold, silver, uranium. Saskatchewan has potash. That is the heart of Canadian farmland there. That region right there. And I assure you that, keep in mind, this is from 2022. Compared to 2022, independence has exploded. Like, I would say 100-fold easily from where it was in 2022. So like that was COVID days, right? So probably I would say that on this map, the right across the north of BC is probably filled in now as well too.
So here, for people who aren't Canadian, he means around here.
Yeah. That's where my family has an outfitting area. Everyone is right wing there. The highways are lined with Wexit signs, Christian support, churches. Everybody's hunting, fishing, outdoors, lumber development, oil and gas development. This is true Canadian industrial culture, just the same kind of culture that you find in Oil Town in Alberta. And the Yukon too brings some more strategic advantages. We get a deep water port to the North Slope, all sorts of oil and gas development going on up there. It's a real hot ticket item. We have another border with the USA. There's already a highway and a railway system to another deep water port just across the border in Alaska as well. So, bringing in, if Alberta is successful, I suspect this is going to spread because they're going to be wildly successful, and the Americans are going to open up trade with them immediately, like overnight. It's going to be like night and day. No more dealing with, Carney and friends. Trump's going to say, "Come on in," and he'll probably help them get a pipeline to maybe somewhere in the West Coast. It will be like totally economically a game changer for every single Albertan. They're going to get rich very quickly. They're going to have compound taxation off their back, and then they're going to start developing a new constitution. So here we get into some more really fun stuff. I really like talking about this stuff. This is the heart of independence, is the constitutional aspects for it.
But I want to know about the First Nation stuff too.
Oh, the First Nation stuff. Okay, so.
And if there's any comments you want to respond to, I don't know,
okay. Yeah, I haven't been reading the comments. I guess I should. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Let me see. I'm just gonna look through. Have had enough. Yeah, they're just more. There's no actual questions, so it's okay.
Yeah,
it's okay. Yeah.
So
I'll tell you if there are questions for you. If you have questions for Yukon, then awesome. Put them up.
Thanks. Okay, so let's go back to First Nations.
Yeah.
Question mark. Okay, so are we going to talk about that with respect to a greater republic or just Alberta? Because it's different.
I think just Alberta, and then okay. If you have another response, that's fine as well.
Okay, so just Alberta. They are in a different scenario than much of the rest of Canada. They have already settled treaties where the First Nations have ceded the land already. It's in the treaty. There's no question. There's no argument. I think that, we'll see Carney and friends in the Supreme Court probably try to tamper with this as much as they can. But at the end of the day, it's in black and white on the treaty. They permanently ceded the land to Alberta, not to Canada, to Alberta. So that said, a lot of people, I don't want to see the that fight start. I would really prefer that all Albertans, including Indigenous, step forward on this. And for Indigenous people, like, this is a huge opportunity to advance your people, because it's gonna change the things economically for everyone. It doesn't matter who you are or where you're living. You're gonna have a better life, a richer life. But the thing is, all the agreements and all, like, the transfer payments, all that funding, um, or sorry, I think it's called federal transfers, FT payments.
They might call it equalization. I always call them transfer payments. I think they call them equalization payments, but it doesn't matter. It's welfare.
Well, yeah, more or less. Well, or in their eyes, it's compensation, whatever.
Yeah.
So here's the argument.
Oh, sorry, you're talking about First Nations. Sorry,
Yeah,
I'm
I'm talking
wrong.
about First Nations.
I'm
Yeah.
wrong. I'm not good at multitasking, and I opened another thing, and then I sorry. Ignore
Yeah.
what I just said, everybody. That is disinformation. Continue.
Yeah. So for starters, from a legal perspective, they can't block this. The treaty is very clear on that, and it covers the entire. I think there's some really tiny parts where it's not covered. But number two, we always hear this discussion about reconciliation, right? Well, what was the country that harmed Indigenous peoples? It was the country of Canada. Canada was the one who did the residential schools. They did all this stuff. This is why we have this argument about funding and land rights and this and that. And let's examine what that idea is about. Like, if you're an Indigenous person, you believe in having your own self-government. You believe in having your own traditional territory. You believe in having your own constitution. You believe in having your own laws and governance. That to me sounds like a little miniature republic, Natasha, right there. So even though they might actually be politically left-leaning in a lot of the government institutions, they're actually Republicans, whether they realize it or not. And they have established this precedent where they have created their own nation within Canada, right?
But I
So
would
if
argue that it's failing pretty spectacularly.
well,
So would Alberta want to maintain these,
no. Well, just
reserves or
let me finish my thought here.
okay.
So what the first thing I want to start is that whether you're an Alberta separatist or whether you're an Indigenous person worried about your future and your rights and all that stuff, you actually have a common thread of independence there. You're after your own self-determination, separate from Ottawa. So there's common
Yeah.
ground to start with right there. Number two, the agreements that they have in place with Ottawa, that doesn't change. Like, if Ottawa makes a deal with China or Norway or whatever, it doesn't matter what happens to parts of Canada. That agreement is still in place. So all that existing stuff, Indigenous people will have a choice, their own choice, whether they want to maintain that existing agreement with Ottawa or back off, or maybe hand it over to Alberta, enter into negotiations with that. But what I would argue to every Indigenous person out there in Alberta watching this is that you have the opportunity to be in at the ground floor of the creation of a new nation, a nation that did not specifically harm you. You can still seek your reparations from Canada, but start actually having the one thing that Ottawa will never grant you under any circumstance, and that is a true say, a true voice in the Confederation. And that's the route I would like to see the province take.
I think that's a lot more persuasive in my mind anyway, because this slate needs to be, rubbed clean, and
Yeah.
people need to be, there need to be improvements in those communities. I mean, it's,
Well, not only that, but we want one rule of law for all mankind. No more of this
yeah, no more
race-based law. Yeah,
gladu. Oh my
yeah,
gosh. It's horrible for people who, I mean, we're not going to go down that topic on
yeah,
this space, but for people who don't know, it's a provision in Canadian law where basically being First Nations is a mitigating factor in sentencing. And what people think that's sympathetic, and what actually ends up happening in reality is that because most crime is intra-racial, so
mhm,
most crime against white women, let's say, is perpetrated by white males, so on and so forth. For each group, most Indigenous violence is perpetrated by Indigenous males. And so they end up getting reduced sentences. And so you just end up creating more First Nations victims through
Yeah.
this principle. So it has to be. I mean, it's terrible. It's terrible. It's so terrible.
I'm
So
not an
many
expert
children
in
are
that.
harmed by this.
Yeah, I'm not an expert in any of that. I haven't really, I can't really comment on that, but I believe you. Um, but what I would just say is that, you know, if the Alberta independence movement can get the people of Alberta who are Indigenous, and it's the same old story. A lot of folks, the canvassers out there, they're getting Indigenous people coming forward, signing up for the sign up sheet and saying, "My chief doesn't represent what we say. Our
Yeah.
government, they're on the news." It's the same thing as Canada. The Canadian government is not representing the will of the Canadian people, and in lots of cases, just with every political body in the country, there is corruption. There is, political and financial abuse there perpetrated on the people. So I would just say, you know, to every Albertan, I don't want to see them getting their shoulders puffed up, having a big fight with Indigenous. It's different than BC. BC is not settled. The Yukon, we have settled
Yeah.
claims as well too, right? So it's a different scenario, and if the Indigenous people of Alberta can come on board with independence, that's it. It's checkmate. Like, what's Canada going to say? No, we're going to oppress you again. You're not allowed to do this. Like, forget it. Forget it. It's like a total implosion of the woke mind hive if that happens. So I don't know. I'm hopeful that, especially in the over the next 6 months, as this conversation heats up, the benefits to all Albertans, regardless of creed, culture, religion, it's gonna be massive. It's gonna be massive. Like, it's just, we live in a compound taxation society, right? Like, we're paying tax on top of tax, tax when you sell, tax when you buy, tax when you earn, tax when you die. All that's just going to poof, be gone. And you're going to either be able to work literally, 4 days a week and make the same amount of money, or you're going to be able to get rich real quick. And that brings down crime, that brings down addiction, that solves so many other problems: violence, abuse, criminal organization. There's just no incentive to misbehave if you're making $100,000 a year and you're respected in your community. It's a better life.
So I have a couple of questions. Like, how do you think Alberta would handle access to their highways, like say for the Trans Canada Highway? Like, would that be cut off? Do you think that they would want to negotiate
They'd have to negotiate a trade
movements?
agreement. They'd have to
Movements.
negotiate
Okay.
a trade agreement. Yeah, it's a new nation, right? And this is why we get the pipeline leverage all of a sudden, because, like, Canada could say, okay, we're going to try and go up around you into Northwest Territories. Yeah, good luck. You'll have 10 years of consultations with First Nations on that, and
But
then
also, good luck with
yeah,
the soil. Good luck
yeah,
with
oh,
building something for two
it's
weeks a
rock.
year.
It's rock, right? It's the Canadian Shield. So it's just, it'll mean 15 years before anything even is remotely going to be sort of getting happening. And that's too long for BC to be cut off from the rest of the country, or Canada to be cut off from the ports in China, period.
Yeah.
So it's not, it's going to have, negotiations will take place very quickly. And especially because within BC, like the map shows, a lot of people in there, they want out too. So they're going to be putting pressure. Just, why don't we join Alberta? Why do we need, Canada for anymore? Same thing with Saskatchewan. They're going to say, we're sick and tired of this shit. We're sick and tired of these rules. We're sick and tired of being hyper immigrated. We're sick and tired of being taxed. And really, I'm just hoping that Carney just goes on a spree here. I want Carney to do carny things. I want them to go hog wild. I want them to, invest in stupid choices. I want them to block things. I want them to fight with Trump. I want them to piss in the face of every Canadian, and it will just be money, money, money to Alberta independence every step of the way. So keep it up, elbows up. We thank you. From the north, from the west, keep going.
Do you think that Smith is wanting Alberta separation or against Alberta separation?
No, I think she's against it. A lot of people see. Okay, so this is why don't we show them? Why don't we? This is a perfect segue into my video. Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I just have to go over. Just tell me if ever. 1 second. Okay. Tell me if ever you don't hear it, and tell me if you want me to stop.
I mean, this is going to be kind of an inflammatory statement, especially to, I think, a lot of your viewers, because they're probably, pretty staunch UCP/conservative supporters. But I think the biggest barrier now in Canada to freedom, it's not the Liberal Party, it's not the NDP, it's just your average run-of-the-mill conservative who just sort of keeps repeating this cycle. The conservative base and the Conservative Party, we're really good at being mad about things and generating outrage and stuff, but we're absolutely horrible about doing anything about it. You can talk to any conservative now, they dislike O'Toole, right? But what we're not ever questioning is that, like, how did a guy like that get into party? Not only that, how did he get into a leadership position? And we have to be proactive. And how we become proactive is we start seeking constitutional injunctions to stop the abuse before it can start.
Well, actually, your idea on the problem isn't Liberals anymore. There's a healthy chunk of people that can see there's a problem, but are they going to come across? And those people are probably large part conservative. So actually, I think it's a perfectly understandable statement. Yeah. And so then you wonder what the holdup is.
It's kind of like transference. People have become so emotionally invested in some of our politicians now that when you attack the politician or you attack the policy, they take it as a personal attack on them. And it's like,
yes,
buddy, I'm just trying to give you free speech. I'm just trying to give you gun rights. I'm literally trying to give you no income tax. That's what we're pushing here. Yeah. And you're just mad because I pointed out that Danielle Smith has increased the deficit, has increased the budget. Like she's not come through on many of the promises that she's made. And it was on your own podcast, Sean, where she said, we're going to double the population, right? And her words were, well, we're going to invite them in. So she wanted to double the population specifically through immigration. And then now she's like, okay, we're going to have a referendum on immigration. Well, this is not only a complete flip-flop on her behalf, but what she's actually trying to do here by creating this Alberta Next thing and all these multiple choice things for the question is she's actually, I think, trying to encourage people who are going to be offended by those issues to come out and vote and then vote against independence as well. That's what she's trying to do here. And she's trying to play it like, oh, I'm just trying to give it up to the power of the people. Okay, well, you just gave Alberta a new Bill of Rights. This actually really pisses me off thinking about this. So the Bill of Rights, it was kind of a mixed bag. Some of it was good, some of it wasn't that great. But the bottom line is she just dictated what the new rights for Albertans were. We didn't have any input on anything that was there, right? And the only way a Bill of Rights can have any true validity is how? Through a referendum, right? It has to be agreed upon by the people. These are our rights. A perfect example of the government dictating their will upon the people. And anyone who says, well, no, we wanted that Bill of Rights, well, guess what? If the NDP ever get in power again, they're going to give you a woke Bill of Rights. It's going to have climate nonsense, all this transgender bullshit. Everything is going to be you hate. And they're going to say, this is the new Bill of Rights. And what are you going to say to that? No. In the instance where there should have been a referendum for the people to agree on or disagree on what their rights are going to be in the province, she didn't give Albertans a say. But now, because the people are saying, these are the rights we want, we're going to take the steps to seize our freedom. We're going to go out there and we're going to tell you what our rights are. Now she's panicking. Okay, well, now we need to have a talk about this. And, Keith Wilson, a lot of guys who are really bright and really powerful voices in the independence movement, they're right about this. They say, don't bark at every dog, that walks by in the park. We don't want to get too sidetracked into this big fight. We just have to stay on message, keep doing what we're doing. And he's right. We want to keep moving forward. But it's open. It's an open attempt to subvert the most important question, the most incredibly powerful moment that I think Albertans will ever have in their lifetime. So that's it in a nutshell. She's trying to dilute the independence question with a whole bunch of inflammatory issues like immigration, etc. And
But that can't be inflammatory out west, is it? I mean,
well,
I'm again, like, I want a total moratorium. We are getting destroyed in Eastern Canada.
well,
So even people who are first generation. I know now everybody says a first generation is someone who immigrates here. No, the first generation in my mind are the people who were born here. But even first generation immigrants, I'm friends with a lot. The majority of my friends are first generation immigrants. They're like, this is out of control. We don't care if we're told we're pulling the ladder up behind us at this point. We don't care if people call us racist. This is visible minorities saying this. They're like, this can't continue. Like, it is so bad in Eastern Canada that it's open conversation, I'd say, at that point. But I don't know out west if it's that bad yet.
Yeah, the hyper immigration issue is affecting every corner of Canada, including the
Okay.
Yukon.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Who goes up? I'm curious.
You go look up this interesting stat. The former Liberal Premier, Ranj Pillai, he's from Nova Scotia, I believe. He was the first premier in Canada to freeze the temporary foreign worker program, and he's a Liberal. So let that one sink in. Okay, so that's how bad people were literally living in their cars up here. There's just nowhere to live. It's very short building season in the Yukon. There's basically like 4 months to get things done.
What's the temperature right now?
It's cold. So the last 3 days have been minus 18 in the daytime, minus 42 to 46 at night every single day. So I just had a wonderful moment. My pipes froze and they just thawed. So now I just had a shower before this video.
Nice.
I was worried I was going to look like a grub. But yeah, it's affecting every corner of Canada. But when I say controversial issues, like what's the number one issue? Go look at Laura Babcock now. She's all freaking out, calling everyone racist, and she's trying to bring the immigrant.
I think I have her blocked. Like, I don't follow her thing at all.
Yeah, I muted her too, but people that I follow retweet her and stuff, and she's just insane, right? But the point is, it's a triggering issue.
She's not out west, though, is she? Where is she?
No, she's in Ontario, I think. I don't know. I don't know. I
no, me neither.
Yeah, but when I say it's a triggering issue, it's a triggering issue for people who are going to oppose independence, and it's simultaneously it allows people who are sort of on the fence, who are like, well, yeah, I want to fix this, but she's saying, well, we'll get immigration under control. She's starting to talk about her own sales only tax now. She's trying to offer the quote unquote benefits of independence while still being able to stay in Canada, right? And then putting it on the same ballot. So no, number one, all of the issues that she's talking about, she doesn't need a referendum to implement them. She could just do them tomorrow. She has a majority. Why hasn't she done them until now? Just last year, she was saying the complete opposite on immigration, to the complete dismay of the Albertan people. And at the end of the day, she proposed a Bill of Rights, that was a referendum issue. We're talking constitutional rights here. She just said, no, these are your rights now. And why didn't we get a referendum there? They had a referendum on the Alberta pension plan. Why didn't that go anywhere? Right. So, was it the pension plan or was it the RCMP? I can't remember what it was, but she had another one last year and it didn't go anywhere. And then, so now she's saying they've since independence got on the rise, they started this Alberta Next panel, which is supposed to be like independence light, I guess, but still support the UCP. And it's just like, no matter who you vote for, federally, territorially, provincially, the minute the government changes, so does your life, so do your rights, so does your economic future. The only way to stop this is with a new constitution. End of story. If you want a permanent end to government abuse in Canada, you have to leave Canada. We have to get Canada out of Alberta. Literally, that's the solution here.
Yeah.
So it's
I only see because I guess I don't think I'm cynical. I think I'm an
Mhm.
optimistic realist. But in my early days on X, when I opened my account up, so that was in 2022, because I had a locked account before then for legal reasons. So when I unlocked my account, I alienated a lot of people because they were unwilling to contend with the fact that there's a pattern that's very visible and very obvious of politicians not delivering, even when the alliance had a majority. You know, they didn't cut funding to the CBC. They didn't appoint senators. They signed the UN Agenda 2015 and 2030. They sold out our manufacturing to China. And it makes people really angry when I say this. And you have to understand, I was like a Preston Manning fan. I supported, the Canadian Alliance, the reform. I campaigned for them. I knocked on doors. Like I
yes,
was a believer. And I
yep,
supported Stephen Harper as well because I met Stephen Harper. I
hmm
went to a rally. Like I didn't even have a car then. I got a friend to drive me out like to the suburbs to go to a rally when I was a university student. So I was very passionate about it. And I felt very I guess backstabbed when it's fine when there's a minority government, then you can make a lot more excuses. But when there's a majority government and I just have to be truthful about what I saw. And there's been a lot of denial of Canadian patriots over the decades. And I understand the attachment to what Canada used to be.
hmm
I really get it. Like I have the makeup of someone who wants to be really patriotic. But
hmm
what can I be patriotic about? I want to restore the country. And the only way I see a path forward to do that is either if Quebec separates, Ontario separates, or Alberta separates. The
hmm
only province that's going to separate is Alberta right now. Because Quebec, I would argue that the Quebec separation has been the biggest grift and it's been the biggest enabler to entrenching Quebec as being a powerful force for driving what happens in Ottawa.
So they threaten to leave, and then Ottawa says, "Oh, here's some candy." Is what you're saying? Yeah.
It works every time. Quebec drives the agenda. The socialism drives the agenda. There was a
Yeah.
time in which Ontario, before the mass invasion, Ontario used to flip back and forth between conservative and liberal.
Yeah.
But eventually, the Quebec socialism really took over, and the population, the demographics changed so much.
Yeah.
It's a fait accompli. So I don't see any other way that Canadians can be liberated from our government. And I think it would be a huge mistake to become the 51st state because all we would be California North. We would
Correct.
be even worse than we are now. We would be even worse off. It would be worse. We would be like a poor woke version of Puerto Rico. That's what we would be. So the 51st state stuff doesn't make sense to me at all.
Nope. Well, I think it would still be an improvement. At least we would have free speech, gun rights, some property rights. We'd have the economic and military advantage of the
No,
United
because
States.
state rights are pretty strong in the US. So we would be California.
Well, if you were saying you're talking about Quebec or Ontario, I don't think Alberta would be California. They would be right
No,
next.
if Canada became the 51st
Oh,
state.
oh,
Because then we'd
Canada.
still have the
Oh,
same
hell no. No, no,
communists,
no,
right?
no, no. Oh,
It
no,
would be
no,
even worse.
no. No, I agree. And
Yeah.
this goes back to the cultural divide too, right? Like it's just like you said, it's different out there than it is out here. And um the 51st state, I'm not really too interested in going down that road because I just think Alberta can build a better constitution. To be honest, I think they can take the existing constitution and put it on steroids. One of the best ideas I've heard so far was from Bruce Party.
He's very
He ta-
smart.
yeah. Well, there's some things I actually disagree with him on.
Yeah, me too. But he's very
but
smart.
yeah, but one of the best ideas that I've seen him put forth is starting the Constitution with a position that the government, he says, no ability to inflict force. That's what he says. I think you need to have much better language than that. That's an abstract.
I don't know what that
concept.
means. Yeah, I don't know.
Exactly, right? But basically, it means that the government has no power or authority to do anything from taxation, enforce the law, or whatever, except the abilities granted to them by the people. So it just fundamentally handcuffs the government without getting authorization from the people to really do anything. So no more getting elected and be like, okay, we're going to raise taxes 20%. Oh, we're in power now. Oh, we're going to spend $500 billion and give everybody, COVID money or whatever. It just says, no, you have to live within these constraints. And if the citizenry disagrees, tough luck. That's it. So it's a very powerful way to cover all of even the unforeseen arguments. Like in 100 years, 200 years, who knows what we're going to be fighting about, right? But if the government has to seek approval every step of the way before it's allowed to do things to us, it certainly makes the ability for abuse to be greatly diminished. Not impossible, but very difficult. And I think what we're going to see here, especially with a successful Alberta referendum, is that a constitution is not something that can be rushed, right? So you're going to have to start off with some basics to get the new government in place, but every one of the amendments or clusters of amendments are going to have to be voted on by referendum again and again and again. And
Well, I was going to say, like in the Swiss cantons, it's really decentralized in Switzerland. And in some of the cantons, almost everything is done by referendum. Almost everything.
Direct democracy.
So,
it's going to normalize the Albertans to direct democracy. And all of us on the outside are going to be watching this and be like, how awesome is that? Right? How awesome. The government, they just voted to give themselves no income tax. Now they got free speech. All the people panicking and frustrated by the gun ban. Well, Albertans have property rights. I never have to worry about losing my land. I never have to worry about the government coming to seize my guns over some bullshit. It's really the cope and the envy is going to grow. So that's why I think it's going to spread. The ideal will spread. The movement will spread, and you're absolutely right. If Alberta does grow into a greater republic, they have to be very careful who's allowed in and on the terms that they're allowed in. That's a way bigger discussion, but
because one of the reasons that I would like Alberta to separate is it could be like old Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day when I can leave Quebec, because I can't leave for the foreseeable future,
Mm-hmm.
But then I could immigrate there.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I've been encouraging them to do too. Everyone's like, well, what are we going to do with immigration and stuff? Because we only have 5 million people. We are going to need some outside aid for certain things and stuff. And I've been telling them, make the rules as hard and as strict as possible.
You could have values tests.
Yeah.
You could do background searches on people. You could also have immigrants that have no access to citizenship rights. You could make some kind of pseudo citizenship in a couple of decades, but they have no voting rights. You could make
politicians, no politicians unless
no foreign politicians.
Yep.
I mean, it used to be, I don't know where, I'd have to look this up, but it used to be like 3 generations before you could serve in the public sector. I don't know which state it was in, but it was like people had to put their time in. And that made sense because it takes time to adapt and to embrace a new culture, even if you want to. It takes time.
I had to wait 18 years before I was allowed to vote.
Yeah.
So did you, right? No, and that's
Yeah.
true. And even then, when I was 18 years old, I was politically naive still. Even that wasn't really enough time, right? So,
I was a good voter, but I think I'm an anomaly.
yeah, I always voted conservative my whole life, but until basically 2021, or sorry, 2019. No, I voted conservative in 2019, but
I've
2021
always
was
voted
yeah.
for the most right-wing option possible, which doesn't always mean much. But
Well, as I said in Western Canada, it doesn't matter how we vote, right? So, um, but yeah, there's all sorts of interesting discussions that can come out of that, But at the end of the day, um, I think at the very least, like you need to, if somebody wants to be involved in politics, they need to denounce their other citizenship. You have to be Albertan and Albertan only. Like that. That's not an unreasonable request. That you are 100% loyal to the nation you are representing. Period. There's no way. Um, I think that that's an unreasonable request for anyone. So, yeah, there's all sorts of constitutional issues. It will normalize the people to direct democracy. The economic equation is through the roof. Like there's you can healthcare. They could just dump another $10 billion into it annually and still have billions left over. Right. Income tax, resource development, all of a sudden all the barriers are gone there. So it means that not only is Alberta going to just keep all its existing wealth and all that tax revenue and all those profits, it's going to keep all that money for itself, but it's going to grow exponentially. It's the third largest proven oil reserves in the world. And we're talking not just like one new pipeline, we're talking probably a dozen, over the years. Like it will be massive. And then you start talking and bringing in Saskatchewan, BC, Yukon, Northwest Territories, none of it. Fuck, man. Like, sorry, Canada. But we're done. And
I
really,
would caution against expanding too big too quickly, though, because then you'll just end up with some of the other issues, especially because the populations aren't that big.
well,
You know.
exactly. The Yukon is smaller than Red Deer in Alberta. We're only 50,000 people here.
Okay, I
But
guess that wouldn't change the voting very much, but I mean, you might
fuck.
have a different setup in terms
Well,
of voting.
we could probably just become a territory, right? Of Alberta. We wouldn't have to be a full blown state or whatever. Those are all discussions. But you're
So
right about
I have two
Alberta's the
questions.
linchpin. Yeah,
Yeah, it is a linchpin for sure. I think
yeah.
Saskatchewan would be next. I don't think that would be a tough sell at all. I think personally, Saskatchewan is actually far more conservative than Alberta, but yeah, time will tell. But I think maybe because the governance in Saskatchewan has been a bit better than Alberta, they might be less inclined to support separation right out of the gate as much. Like I think Albertans are more frustrated. Let's put it that way. But
It will only take one irritation from Carney and everyone will be screwed. Let's screw this. Why are we dealing with this anymore? And that's really the bottom line. Is there is no argument for Alberta to stay. There really is no, like, if you were shopping around for a country to live in and you're like looking at the laws, okay, like what does Canada have? Does it have free speech? Nope.
no,
Does it have property rights? Nope.
no,
Does it lock up criminals? Nope. Does it hand out free drugs to its citizens? Yep.
yes,
Do we have openly known, infiltrated, espionage at the highest levels of our government? Yes. Does it have massive debt? Yes. Does it have a powerful dollar? No. There is no check mark on anything. Really, I guess we have good hockey players. It's clean. Like the land itself is beautiful and clean and resource
yeah.
rich. But the
Not for long,
governance,
though. Not for long.
yeah. But really, it's a sad tale. The Canadian people are literally a wonderful people sitting on a mountain of treasure, being systematically handcuffed and suppressed and censored and beat down for absolutely no reason.
Well, it's
By
not no reason though, because a lot of people out east have a slave mentality. It's hard to convey if people don't, but they have a slave mentality. They are waiting all the time for someone to rescue them. And they really do have
Like for the
this,
government to fix things or something? Like, is
they,
that what you mean?
they believe that the government is trying to take care of them. They're godless people. And for them, the God is the state. I don't know how else to describe it. They really do worship at the altar of the state. And they
Ugh.
can't even conceive of a world in which major decisions in their lives are not determined by the managerial elites.
It really is a foreign concept to me. Like, I have my own water supply, I have my own sewage, I have to take care of my own garbage, I have to do my own driveway, everything. Like, the only thing I have is electricity. And within a few years I'm going to be pretty much like off grid. But maybe in the deepest darkest nights of the winter I'll need to suck some juice from the grid. But I've been looking at even maybe putting in some geothermal. And if I do that, it'll be really expensive. But if I do
I
that,
was going to say, it's
yeah,
a big, you're making good money.
well, it's I'm and that's another thing, right? Like, if Alberta separates and the Yukon joins, that kind of money is achievable for the blue collar worker. Every single person. If you're willing to go out there and work and show up 9 to 5, you're going to make a good living. You're going to be able to afford a home. You're going to be able to buy a nice vehicle. You're going to be able to live without debt. And
It's crazy. I have to interrupt because I think part
yeah.
of the reason that Canadians have become so disassociated from reality, not all Canadians, but many, is because of false narratives and rewriting history. And for example, one of my grandfathers was a sole breadwinner with 8
hmm
children.
hmm
8 children.
Wow.
And he was able to provide for a family of 8.
hmm
They all had nice clothes. I don't think they had tons of clothes, but they all had nice clothes. My
hmm
grandmother used to make a lot of the clothes. She used to sew them. They had a car.
Yep.
They were able to go to the cottage on vacation. They went to Florida on vacation. This was a family of 10. So 8
Yeah.
children
Wow.
on one salary, and he was not like a highfalutin executive.
hmm
This was in a small town, and the
Yep.
lifestyle was very carefree. And the
hmm
children had extracurricular activities as well. They all
hmm
knew how to swim. They all knew how to skate. Some of them did, Highland dancing or whatever, different activities for different kids on one salary.
Yeah.
There's just absolutely no way that that would happen nowadays unless it was a multimillionaire. And this was normal.
Yeah.
This was the norm. This wasn't unusual.
No, it was Canada.
It
So
was Canada.
yeah. And that brings into the whole discussion on fiat currency, deficit spending, feminism. Like, that's a whole nother episode, right? But
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. I don't think, like, in the short term, I don't think it will be that drastic of a change
No,
for
it takes
Alberta.
time. It takes
Yeah.
time to build something beautiful.
But it'll be like a minimum 30% better, like overnight, like just boom. You all of a sudden you're keeping your whole paycheck. Like, I just did my taxes this year. Between my corporate and my personal taxes, I'm just under $70,000 in tax I paid this year. Like, that's how much it's just costing me to stand in Canada now. And
Yeah.
yeah, I work, I earn a little bit higher than the average person, but I work like a psychopath
And
every
you're
minute of every day.
yeah. And
Yeah.
you're
So
unmarried, right? So you're single
yeah,
income.
yeah. So it's you know,
And
like,
you work hard and you do well, but could you provide for a family of 8?
no, I
No.
could I could I could I could handle probably 3 kids and a wife. I could do that. Like, my house is paid for and whatever, and we would have like a firmly middle class life.
Yeah.
But I would not be able to take a day off. You know what I mean? Like, I would be working, just like I am now. So, And the thing is, I'm not a young man anymore. Like, it was just my birthday yesterday. I'm only going to be able to keep this up for another 10 years, and then I'm going to be like, oh, my back hurts.
You're not that old, ladies. He's still available, I think, or maybe he's not, but he's not that old and broken
I
yet.
well, oh my God. Um,
Sorry, I
I
put you
I
on the
I
spot.
I no, no, I'm not single at the moment, but
Okay, good. He's
I
taken.
I don't have a wife.
Well, you should put a
That's a
ring on it
different
then.
conversation.
Yeah.
Well, I'm only getting married once, so it's got to be the right one, right?
Yeah. That's
Um,
good strategy.
so anyways, yeah, I just think, like, in my mind, like, I know for my life, if I didn't have to pay tax anymore, like, holy crap, man. Like, I could quit one of my jobs. You know what I mean? Like, and I would make the same amount of money. Like, that's literally, like another 35 hours a week spare time every
Yeah.
week, you know? Um, and I don't know, that translates into, like you said, vacations with the family, camping trips, you know, buying a new fun toy, a quad, a skidoo, an ATV, or getting a boat, maybe,
And
like,
just a lot more energy, because I have another theory that the people who are most like-minded to myself are so beaten
exhausted.
down
Yeah.
and tired and just literally don't have time because they're working so hard to keep
Yeah.
their heads above water. They don't have the
Mindset.
extra income to put into important political movements. They have to deal with lawfare. Like, there are so many patriots I know who are in some different lawfare hell, myself
Yeah.
included at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
It's constant, and I think that that's one of the strategies. And I hope that Albertans, liberty-minded Albertans, will be able to envision
Hmm.
things just getting so much better in the short
Hmm.
term, and then in the long term, things being amazing, and just not
Yeah.
having to fight so hard. Like, it's
Yeah.
exhausting. It's exhausting to deal, the trans ideology, that nightmare, the Marxism in the schools and the indoctrination, the endless managerial regime problems that are created in life, and just the cost. Like, I have an old car, and I'm
Mhm.
paying almost $700 a year just for my registration, not for my
Oh
car
my God.
insurance,
Holy
not for
crap.
my
Yeah.
license.
Yeah.
That's just
Yeah.
vehicle registration. The vehicle hasn't changed. It's been
Yeah.
mine for 13 years, but yet I have to give the government, what is that money even for? And when I had a business with my ex-husband, when we
Mhm.
calculated the taxes, and we had things structured in a minimally costly way, like the
Mhm.
maximum tax benefits, let's say, we had employees, and we calculated that at the end of the day, we were paying almost 70% in tax, because you're also paying almost 16% in consumption tax in Quebec. You buy a new
Ugh.
house in Quebec, you pay a welcome tax.
Oh my God.
Everything
Eh,
is taxed. Everything
Actually,
is taxed.
I know, because I just found, I was like going on the forums talking to other guys like that are into sledding out in Quebec, because you guys have pretty awesome trails out there too. But I
Yeah.
found out you have to pay to use the trails there. It's like a $600 pass. I'm like, you guys have to pay to
You
go
have
into
to
the
pay for
forest? You have to pay to
everything.
go in the forest? I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I could just drive over there outside my front door. Like, that is unheard of out here. Like, unheard of. Like, nobody would tolerate that for even 10 seconds, right? Like, it's just like, what? So, yeah. And I apparently they said that they like groom the trails and all this stuff. And then I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
well, that means there's going to be like skidoo cops now and Karens that saying your exhaust is too loud. And like, fuck, we just go for a rip anywhere, literally anywhere, right? So it's just, yeah, I don't identify with that thinking. I don't think it's reasonable for Canadians to have to pay to use the forest. You know, it's like, what do you want me to say? You know?
Well, I interviewed Jeff Evely, and he was
Yeah,
fined almost $30,000 for
I
using the
remember that.
forest
Yeah,
because
yeah,
daddy government said that he couldn't go for a walk in the woods.
yeah. That was awesome. I remember when he put that video out, I was like, right on. Here we got some balls finally. But yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out for him. You know, but you know what? You know what else? This kind of brings up another point. Like, why does a guy like him have to do that? Right? Like, why does it fall to a private citizen to put themselves at that much legal exposure and financial risk to do the right thing? We always hear the Conservative Party or other politicians that say we're going to hold the Liberals to account. Really? Because the JCCF was the ones who took the government to court over the
Yeah.
Freedom Convoy. What was stopping the Conservative Party from doing that? Like, imagine the political gold they could have dug there for themselves if they would have said, no, we're going to sue this. We're going to chase this down. We're going to use our party funds. We're going to actually try and, you know, prove that this was illegal, unconstitutional. They didn't do that. It's just like everyday random people like you and I who are stuck promoting the right ideas. And that's why I've become so disillusioned with the political situation in Ottawa now. Like,
I'd like to point
care
out,
anymore.
I think you even blocked me at one point because you were offended by my disdain for the CPC.
Did I?
I think you did.
I blocked you. I
Briefly.
I I only block people who are like obsessively following me for like days usually, but
We might have
maybe
been arguing for a few days. I don't remember.
okay.
I get blocked and unblocked a lot. It's funny because
Okay.
oftentimes it'll be issue by issue with people. So I'll offend them on one issue, but then something else will change and they'll be like, you know, when I see they've unblocked me, it makes me laugh. The pleb has me blocked right now. He blocks me on and off
Mm.
the blob.
Well, I will say this, like, with respect to my support for the Conservative Party in the past, like, I would say my heart truly changed under Andrew Scheer. The main thing was it, there was about an 18-month period there where it was just like a daily onslaught against gun owners every single day in the media from the government, and the Conservative Party said nothing. And then finally they passed I think it was C-71, and Andrew Scheer had like a 3-minute scrum in the hallways of Parliament saying, yeah, we oppose this. And it was like, really? That's all you got after, you know, this onslaught? So it was at that point I realized, okay, there's something wrong with the party. Definitely with this particular leader. Um, and
And he was leaps and bounds better than O'Toole.
oh yeah, yeah. But I'm just trying to say this from my perspective. And it was at that point I said, okay, these guys aren't going to do it, but maybe I can still affect change from within, and I can encourage other conservatives to start being like, hey, this isn't okay. We're not liberals, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like in my video there, it's the people take that personally, right? Because I was still at that point trying to seek a solution where Canada stayed together, and
Yeah.
I didn't see any other political party, even the PPC, as having a real chance of getting a majority government. So I was trying to push CPC or PPC ideology into the Conservative Party, and every step of the way, no matter which politician that has led the Conservative Party, they have betrayed their conservative base. They're absolutely unafraid to piss in the face of good Canadians like you and I, and they will bend over backwards to not even risk any sort of minor offense from every other group. And it's just like,
Yeah. I see
wow.
them bringing in different advocates I know and advocates I like from
Yeah,
minority groups to
yeah,
have all sorts of forums with them.
hmm,
They've not asked me to go.
yeah,
I'm fairly, you know, public.
yeah,
I've met Stephen Harper. I've met Poilievre. I've gone to events. I've talked to people. I had a conversation with Poilievre in December. It was
hmm.
just December before the election, and I said outright, like, it
What
is
was he like?
dangerous. He's
never
very
met him.
likable. I've met him a couple
Yeah.
times. He's very likable. I mean, politicians generally are very likable people. He's
Mhm.
very likable. He's very warm.
Mhm.
But his eyes glazed over when I said to him, look, like, I want to support, like, I've supported the PPC. I like their platform a lot more. I don't think they're great on international relations at all, but most of the things that affect my everyday life, they're far better than
Yeah.
the CPC. But I said to him, and I meant it, I said, I will support you when you start, behaving like a conservative. And I said, mass immigration is the number one issue right now for
Mhm.
Quebecers. Our streets are being taken over by jihadis. I
Yeah.
get death threats. I get physically assaulted when I'm trying to report on this. His eyes glazed over and he couldn't wait to end the conversation.
Yeah.
And it's very frustrating because he's supposed to be advocating for me. I mean, I
Yeah.
guess not because I don't vote for him, but I'm still a Canadian. And they're not interested in feedback from heritage Canadians. That's the way I look at that party. They're not interested in it. They pander as hard. It's like Danielle Smith wearing a headscarf from, the Sikh faith. This is not her faith. What is she doing? It's weird.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's like Mr. Dressup. We laugh at Trudeau for blackface, and we laughed at him for dancing, when he came out with the Bollywood. And then
Yeah.
our supposed conservative politicians do exactly the same thing. They all pander at the provincial level and at the federal level. Like it's very disappointing. It's
Yeah.
very disillusioning.
I completely sympathize with you on every single of the points, every single one of the points you brought up there. But for me now, as someone who is all in on independence and is
Yeah.
all in on getting away from Canada, all
Yeah.
I can think of in my mind is this: even if we elect a flawless conservative government, a People's Party government, it doesn't matter which political party we elect. And even if they go 10 years, 12 years with just the most based, awesome, corrective, aggressive policy, the very next Liberal government that comes in will just do this to us all over again. And that's because our
Yeah.
Constitution is flawed. Period.
Yeah.
So the only way to fix that is to get a new constitution, and the only way to get that is through Alberta independence, and that's it. So
It's not just the Constitution that would make it impossible. It's the entire managerial regime, and people don't always know what I mean when I say that. I mean the regulatory regime. So for lawyers, that's how they get them. For doctors, it's a CPSO, like the College of Physicians.
Just like Jordan Peterson.
They're regulators, all the regulators. It's the insurance. The insurance gets them, for physicians. That's why they weren't able to fight back against the COVID regime, because they knew that they'd lose their license. So it always happens. It's not just the judges. It's not just the judiciary. It's not just the politicians. It's not just the bureaucrats. It's an entire infrastructure that is set up to exert power as well over businesses. It's just endless regulation. So yes, I agree with you. Like, even if every single member of parliament was PPC hardcore, like yourself and myself, I mean, we would actually have to have the insurrection that the press always talks about to overthrow the managerial regime. It's just too big. It's too big and it's too deep.
They ever let me into the House of Commons as an MP, I'm going to skin a bear on the floor of the House of Commons and eat its heart.
I know that. That's your fantasy.
Yeah, that's my fantasy. The West exists. The North exists.
Do you have to eat the heart, though? It's a bit gross,
No. This is how we do things around here.
Really?
Our culture is true Canadian culture. End of story. I'm serious. So you're absolutely right. And that's why they're after the bureaucracy, the regulatory regime, as you put it, the Senate. If anywhere they can impose a regulator, it's not just about taxation. It's about ideological gatekeeping, and they'll cut Polyev out at the knees or Bernier out at the knees every step of the way. So we just got to go right around that. Bye-bye. See you later. Thank you. but we're moving on now, and we're going to show you how to do it correctly. And we wish you well. There's no hard feelings, but we don't want to have men in women's bathrooms. We don't want to have,
Can I just
criminals.
plug this? I just want
Yeah.
to plug this for a second.
Yeah.
I spoke with Heather Mason recently. Because you said men in women's spaces. She was in jail, in and out of jail for a long time, a drug user,
Mhm.
and she came on and I interviewed her about males in female prisons, and it was
Oh
really
boy.
like a harrowing interview. And I recommend that everybody watch it, because there are men going into female spaces, and
Predators.
these are rapists. These
Yeah.
are murderers. One is a baby rapist. He
Oh my God.
violently raped a 3-month-old baby. The baby almost died,
Yeah.
miraculously survived, was airlifted. And this pedophile degenerate is in female prisons. So
Yeah.
Alberta won't have that. Won't need to
Yeah.
have that.
Well, that's the plan, right? So and like that's the other thing, and it's not just the bureaucracy and the regulatory boards. It's our freaking Supreme Court. The justice system is completely captured. I think it's like 75% of
Oh no, it's
judges.
higher. It's higher than
Yeah,
that. It's
yeah,
higher than
like that they just affirmed no life sentences for child pornography. They affirmed no life sentences for mass murder. Like, what are you guys doing at the Supreme Court? Like, if you can't punish a mass murderer.
It's a narco tyranny. That's what's happening. It's a narco tyranny where patriots are punished and criminals are set free.
I agree. And I don't understand the purpose of our justice system if we can't get that right. It literally serves nothing to the average Canadian. And the fact that they find, the time to even hear that court case, or that it's like something that needs to be addressed. Meanwhile, freezing bank accounts is, oh, that's no big deal. It really is an alarming signal from every level, no matter what your political stripe is. You have no rights in this country anymore. I don't care. You can show me the document. You can show me the
You don't even have parental rights over your own children.
yeah. And even if you do have rights in certain circumstances, maybe there was a precedent before things went to shit or whatever, they'll still charge you with a bunch of crimes and a bunch of bullshit. They'll drag you through the court system. It'll cost you 2 years of your life, thousands and thousands of dollars, and then you'll be found innocent at the end. Oh yeah, okay, you didn't actually do anything wrong, but you're still out all that time, stress, and money, and the day-to-day burden of dealing with it, right? So
The process is the punishment sometimes. Sometimes
yeah,
it's also,
punishment is the process. Yeah.
you're also jailed for, mischief. But
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. Under house arrest for mischief. And mischief is one of the most, it really is one of the most insidious laws in Canada, because it just, there's not really any burden. Like any constable can just like hit someone. Okay, you're being here. We're charging you with mischief. Here you are. You're under arrest. Okay. Well, now the Crown will withdraw the charges, 6 months later. But guess what? You still had to spend a night in jail. You still had to get a lawyer to defend yourself. You still, and it's just the cop can just do it on the spot, arbitrarily, without punishment, even if he does it to 50 people and they all get found innocent or the charges dropped. There's no penalty to them. So it's just, it's not a fixable situation anymore. It's too late. I think, I honestly think the COVID election was our last chance to turn it around. And maybe 2021, maybe. I don't really think so, though, because Polyev was proposing deficits and hyper immigration still. So I don't know. I think Canada, that we loved and we were so fortunate to be a part of, it's gone for good. And I think at this point now, if you do not support independence movement in your neck of the woods, or empowering at least your provincial or territorial government, you are un-Canadian. is really the bottom line.
Well, I don't though,
You're a
because
post-nationalist.
because if Quebec became actually did separate, it would just be even more socialist. So I support Alberta separation as
Do
a
you think
Canadian
that
option.
though?
Oh yeah,
You don't think? I think at the very least Quebec would put in some sort of cultural declaration to
that's
protect.
yes, but Quebec threw away the Catholicism. They threw away religion, and they replaced it with statism. So laïcité
Mm,
is literally secularism, and that's the culture that they push for now. So
mm,
in the summer, when there were finally people fighting back against the Islamists who were doing public prostrations in the street, which
yeah.
I and two other journalists tried very hard to bring
Mhm.
to the mainstream, Alexa Lavoie and Guillaume Roy,
I
they're
love Alexa.
patriots.
She's one of my
Yeah,
favorites. Yeah.
yeah, she's an amazing
I
woman.
hope I
She's
get to meet
really
her someday. Yeah.
she's not just an intrepid journalist, but she's also a very kind and loving person. She's really a wonderful person. But they did even more work than I did to try and shine a light on what was going on. And finally, it did make it into the legacy media, and people were very upset about it in Quebec because they don't like those encroachments. But the way the politicians went about it was to decide that there was going to be, to try to bring forth bills for laïcité. So instead of criticizing the fact that we're bringing in a culture which is not vibing with Canadian culture and has no place in it, a religion which is not compatible with Canadian values and with Canada and with Quebec, instead of going and focusing on that, it's just more blanket laws that now will be applied to Christians and Jews, which were the religions that Christianity has been in Quebec for 500 years, and Judaism has been in Montreal and different pockets of Quebec for 250 years, and there haven't been problems. There's one religion that has been problematic, but the politicians won't assert, a Catholic culture, which is the Quebec inheritance, because they destroyed it. So if people don't have the religious foundation, it always ends up evolving into statism, because people will worship at the altar of the state. So I believe in Quebec that if it's separated, it would be even more socialistic and more statist. I know that there are many Quebec patriots. There are pockets, like where Bernier is from, of like true blue conservatives. And you'll meet people who really do have conservative values, but even people with conservative values still are brainwashed into voting Liberal. And a lot of that is related to separation as well. They're traumatized. They think they have, they have to vote against the separatists to preserve their rights. And it's complicated in Quebec also, because minorities really are like English rights. You really are a second-class citizen if you're an Anglophone in Quebec. So that is true. So it's complicated, but I think it would just get even worse in Quebec. Honestly, it would be even worse.
Well, you're a very intelligent woman, Natasha, and you're well versed in civics. And as you said, you were involved in politics way before.
It was healthy to be, yeah.
Yeah. Before I blame myself most of all for this shit, for not getting involved sooner, But so let me ask you this, because as you said, you went through an independence referendum yourself in Quebec. What would you recommend? What would your advice be to Albertans? What would the pitfalls be? What would be the number one, go-to piece of advice to make sure that their referendum is successful?
I think it would be to have very clear and sharp messaging. I think where it kind of fell apart for the Quebec sovereigntists was it was extremely vague.
In vague in the sense of what they were going to do?
There was literally not even a plan. I remember even the signs for Quebec separation had almost nothing on them. It was just like some vague symbolism. There wasn't an articulated vision of what they wanted to build. It was more about what they didn't want, which was to deal with the rest of Canada or, Anglophones deciding their fate. But you need to have a vision.
Yeah.
Your vision can't just be not them. I think this is also part of the reason why Canadians are doing so badly is because of the Trump derangement syndrome and the hatred that unfortunately liberals and NDP leftist Canadians, not the rest of us, but the leftist Canadians have for the US. Their identity is we're not them. That's not an identity.
Yeah.
That's not, it's not an identity. We're not them. What is that? What is that garbage?
You know what I honestly think what kind of is the root of TDS is that, every single other argument that you have with the woke cult, that the data is never on their side, right? The logic is never on their side. It's always just an emotional argument of victimhood or some sort of entitlement. Every time. Doesn't matter. You pick a topic, climate change, transgenderism, doesn't matter. So with Trump, they have this fact that he's a convicted felon, right? So it's the first time they've had, a fact to cling to. So they're so, we got this argument now, we got this, but it's just like, come on, man. He shredded some documents in the office, maybe kind of sort of, and now he's the president, so whatever he did wasn't that bad. You know what I mean? like sorry, at the end of the day, right, it's just the first time they've actually had something that wasn't a delusion or a fantasy as the foundation for their ideological position. So this is what gets them so hyped up, because they've been getting their ass kicked by folks like you and I for decades. And now they feel like they have this argument to fight back with, and they get to, call everyone racists, so they don't have to actually have an argument about anything. And they're in a position where it just gets financed perpetually by the current government in power in Canada. So that always makes them feel like they're right about everything. And, the minute it changes, they're going to find out the hard way that the money's going to dry up, the rights are going to dry up, and they're going to be abandoned just like we were, the minute it becomes cheaper to do so and still hold political power. And I think that really, one of the greatest things about the Alberta independence and versus the Quebec referendum, is that we're at a point now in Canada where, okay, like you said, the APP, the Alberta Prosperity Project, they have a very clear plan. They're very organized. Like there are now more Alberta canvassers than there are RCMP in the province, which is wild to think about. And not just a little bit more, like twice as many. And they're approaching the same number of soldiers now. So,
that was the question I had too, is what's the thought about the military?
Well, Alberta's going to have their own military. Absolutely.
But how are they going to, build a quick military? Because that's, theoretically, then Canada could invade.
Well, this was where I was going with this conversation, is that especially because Mark Carney recognized the state of Palestine, it's going to give Donald Trump the same argument to recognize the nation of Alberta, right? And that is one of the prerequisites for the Clarity Act. So there's like this perfect storm. There's this angst against the governance in Canada. There's this, east-west snootery division sort of conversation happening. There's a massive economic argument in favor of leaving. There's a massive constitutional and civil liberties argument in favor of leaving. The most powerful nation in the world is 100% guaranteed going to back this move on the international stage. They are going to 100% use Alberta as a thorn in the side of Ottawa to, say, oh no, Alberta, we're going to trade with them, no tariffs, it's going to be great. They're going to get all the benefits that Canada used to have with the United States, while everyone out east is going to be like, no fair, and they're going to develop their and maintain their own Albertan culture and build a modern, probably the most powerful and modern constitution the world has yet to see. And it is going to set them off on a rocket towards the moon. Like it's really an exciting time. And I'm going to probably go down next summer to help them, just tour around and talk to people and go to events and interview people and help however I can, because this is it, man. Like if Alberta doesn't get out, I don't see a course correction possible. So
I
yeah.
I have two questions. One is, well, I have three. So one question, and then we should wrap up. It's long for you and for me, but
Sure.
one question is, what do you think the popularity of the movement is at? The second question is, what's the approximate timeline for the referendum? And then the third question is, how would Alberta guard against potentially being really hammered if the government changes in the US? Because it's not a guarantee that you're going to have a figure like Trump at the helm, right? You could have Kamala Harris.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So so the support for independence right now, the polls are all over the place recently, but I think that's just literally the establishment just pushing back, trying to undercut where it's truly at. My personal feeling is it's solid about 35%, and there's probably another 20 to 25% that could go either way. They're really going to be the ones who decide it. And like last summer, it was polling as high as 66%, I do believe. But all that's just kind of nonsense. And literally by the hour, by the day, the situation is growing down there. Like, this is why the Alberta Next panel came into play with Daniel Smith. They realized, holy shit, this has got teeth. It's got teeth with members of the UCP and their own party. It's got teeth with the base, and it's just like everyday average Albertans are just like done. And then this was another really interesting thing. Polyev, he did a blunder. He came out to Alberta, after he got fired, and basically like came into a riding, got elected so that he could get back into the House of Commons again, which is total BS, and then basically disappeared, then came out and then quit, not even a year later. So he left all the constituents who voted for him, and then like a few days later held the conservative convention in Alberta, and it pissed so many people off. So now you have a large group of conservatives who they're like, why are we doing this anymore? Well, let's just leave. Right? So it's just a lot of people, they're just slowly but surely realizing it's not going to matter. Like, even if Carney delivers on this pipeline in 10 to 12 years, well, big deal. They're going to still take 60% of the profits. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not going to fix things. By then, there's going to be another 10 million new Canadians.
Yeah.
And the Liberal Party of Canada is actively offering millions of dollars in financial incentives to form unions in Edmonton specifically. They're trying to steal the unions from the NDP out there. It's an active, funded, organized attempt to change the demographics of Alberta permanently away from conservatism.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's about 35% right now, legit. And that just means if every separatist convinces one person, it's a done deal. And I spoke to Jeff Rath recently. I spoke to a couple of people in Alberta, and they are all telling me it's way higher than everybody realizes. And I believe it, because if it wasn't a real threat, Danielle Smith wouldn't be responding. She wouldn't be confusing this referendum question. And then to answer when is the referendum going to occur, it will be on October 19th, 2026. If they could meet the
That's
signature
soon.
threshold. Yeah,
That's soon.
this fall. So I personally kind of wish they were going to wait another year to
Build
let Mark
momentum.
Carney
Like
let Mark Carney do Carney things, right?
People need to understand that in Quebec, the first referendum, I think, was in 1980. The second was in, I don't know if it was 96 or 97 or 98. I think it was actually, or 95 even. Anyway, it was late 90s. But the Quebec separatist movement began, in the 70s or maybe even the late 60s. So it had a very long time to grow, a long incubation period, a lot of political legitimacy behind it because there were separatist governments elected. There were these provincial separatists were having conversations at an international level, with international politicians. So what Alberta has done in a very short period of time is really impressive. But what's also different is this is not the 1970s where people are just listening to the radio and reading newspapers. So the information can really get out quickly and can really capture the minds of people. What do you tell people who are afraid of separation? Because, people who've been living in a prison sometimes are scared to go outside thinking that it might be worse outside the prison, right?
Absolutely. Well, how I generally approach the conversation with people who are hostile towards it, skeptical, or just curious, is I start asking them simple questions. Say, do you feel like you pay too many taxes? Do you think you own your home? Like I start asking them questions about their life. As like, if you could change one thing about Canada, and overwhelmingly they'll start outing themselves as being aware of problems in Canada. And I say, okay, well, what's your plan to fix that? And then they'll say, well, we're going to elect Pierre Poilievre, or we're going to elect Maxime Bernier, or we're going to elect Danielle Smith, and she's going to fix it for us. And I say, okay, so what happens after they leave? Right? What happens when Pierre's not prime minister anymore and we get another Mark Carney? He is literally going to, get rid of all the legislation. They're going to repeal everything. They're going to raise taxes again. They're going to deficit spend $500 billion, economically enslave the nation for another 30 years. They're probably going to send thousands and thousands of people into your neighborhood who only vote Liberal. And it could possibly be the last time you ever have someone who represents what you believe in government, if they're even capable of getting that. And then they'll say, well, yeah, I never thought about that. I'm like, I said, I get them starting to think about a permanent solution. And then I ask them the biggest one is, can you define Canadian culture? And this was actually interesting. I went into it was a conservative space the other day with some guys I really like. They're all, they're diehard, CPC Poilievre guys, but they're all really nice and they're just trying to fix Canada. They just want to do it through that avenue. And I asked them, I said, like you, I said, I'm right wing. I'm definitely fiscally conservative. I'm socially conservative. Sell me on this. Tell me, what is the highlight reel? What's the number one most conservative thing about Pierre these days? Like, you want me to vote for him? Hit me. Then the room went silent. They started Googling, and then they started reading his platform. I said, no, I don't want that. I said, I want, hit me with the highlight reel. Is he gonna get rid of the GST? Is he gonna establish free speech? Is he gonna establish property rights? He's talking about rolling back the gun ban to 2015 levels, which was extreme gun bans, gun registration, permits to go here, permits to go there, 5-round magazines, like all these ridiculous laws. It was psychotic gun control in 2015. That doesn't fix a damn thing. And they start realizing, okay, well, yeah, we got a problem here. And then when you ask them when they can't define Canadian culture, that always stumps everyone. Then I say, look, I mean this with all due respect. I know you're a good person. You're a hard worker. You're just trying to fix things, but you've lost your identity. And if you've lost your identity, you are in deep trouble, because a nation is its people. And if you lose the identity of the people, you lose the nation. It doesn't matter what the borders say or what the laws say. And to anyone out there wondering how you define Canadian culture, listen to your heart. My heart, it tells me it's this: it's hunting, fishing, firearms, free speech, farming, all on a beaver, riding a moose, combined with hard work. And every single Canadian out there, ding, yeah, I agree, right? And you know, most people, though, you ask them that point blank, well, they start stumbling. And that's a really big indicator. You can ask them a question, hey, what you believe you want to cut immigration, or there might be some other controversial issue. You come and talk to me about it, but how come you don't speak out about it on your Facebook page? Oh, I don't want anyone at work to see it. Oh, I don't want to get in trouble. My boss might fire me, whatever. And I'm like, if you're afraid to speak your mind in your own country, you're not a free citizen anymore. You're a
Yeah.
prisoner. You're a
Yeah.
prisoner. I say, what happens if you wear a Make Canada Great Again hat if you go to a conservative rally? Kicked out. What's wrong with making Canada great? Right? Why are conservatives opposed to making Canada great? You know, and then of course the number one moneymaker question is why should Alberta stay? And
Yeah.
it will always be an emotional argument. Oh, well, I just want the old Canada back, or we want to stay united. United with what?
I don't even know what the
Yeah,
emotional argument would be. It's like
yeah.
an abused wife who wants to stay with her lousy husband that beats her. Like,
Free,
it's not
free,
a convincing emotional
yeah.
argument. It's like, it's nonsense.
Free fentanyl. Child pornography upheld by the Supreme Court. Deficits, endless deficits, endless taxation. Like what is it about Canada?
Replacement immigration.
Yeah. Well,
A Canada
when
without any Canadians in it.
yeah, when was the last time any level of government encouraged Canadians to have a family? You could say we're going to give a tax holiday to new parents, 5 years. You don't pay any taxes if you have a kid. That's going to help things. You could. Oh, I think we disconnected. Did I disconnect?
No, you're there.
Oh no! Oh, you just disappeared for a second.
Okay.
You could offer a tax holiday to new parents. You could say, any mother who has four and is married, we want to encourage nuclear families. We don't want to just
Yeah.
have like random women having dozens of
No.
babies with strangers. But
It's
we could say, if you have four
destroyed
kids,
the black family in the US, really.
yeah, if you want to have four kids, that's it. You don't pay taxes for the rest of your life. You stay married and you have four kids. Boom. There's so many things you could offer: a financial incentive for new families for their first home. At least you know all of our solutions always go back to, we have to bring in people from somewhere to
Yeah.
solve this for us. It's like, why aren't we giving free education to nurses, free educations to doctors? Why don't we just, if we started that 10 years ago, we would have thousands and thousands of doctors and nurses right now, Canadian
Yes.
born doctors and nurses.
People have a structural problem
Mhm.
if they cannot train their own population
Correct.
for ingenuity, for talent, for providing services, especially for basic services. You're telling
Yeah.
me that we can't train Canadians to be doctors and nurses? Are you kidding
Yeah.
me? How
N- n-
ridiculous.
Never mind that, even just like trades workers offer journeymen. If you take on an apprentice, you get a tax cut. That right there, every single contractor out there, oh, I can pay 10% less tax if I bring on a journeyman or sorry, an apprentice. Boom, right there. All of a sudden, now you have construction workers, you have carpenters, you have plumbers, you have gas fitters, you have welders, and all these people are coming up behind you. And like, you can go talk to any field now. It doesn't matter. My field doesn't really, there's like the next generation, there's no one coming up to replace us. Like when I retire, I don't know what all my customers are going to do. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know who they're going to hire, literally.
Yeah.
And I've seen this in several of my clients, the older workforce, they retire. And then in a very short period of time, they come back for two reasons. Number one, the employer begs them to come back because whoever they hire to replace them is completely incompetent and can't get the jobs done, or is just averse to responsibility and work, in many cases, or because the cost of living has spiked so much, they don't have enough money for retirement now. They're like in their 70s, freaking working, behind a cash register. It's
Yeah.
harsh, man. When I see that, it
Yeah.
just breaks my heart.
I
So,
know 2 octogenarians, one who's working full time, really out of necessity.
yeah,
Also passion for the work, but necessity.
yeah,
And another who could retire, but he's a specialist physician, and there's literally nobody to take his patients. So
correct.
he feels compelled to continue, not because he necessarily needs the stress at this
Mm.
point in his life. It's a very, very demanding job,
Yep.
but because he cares deeply about his patients and he knows that
Hmm.
there's nobody to take them.
Hmm.
There's no one to take them. Maybe like a portion of them, but that's the reality that Canadians are facing, and Albertans can opt out
Hmm.
and build something better.
Yeah, I don't think
They can build
like
back better. I'm kidding.
yeah, like the buzz that's surrounding the independence movement right now, it's awesome. It's really positive. It's really unified. It's really growing quickly. But I don't think for a lot of people that are just sort of watching it or haven't gotten involved yet, they haven't clicked how massive this opportunity is for them. Like this is a life-changing economic policy for themselves, their children,
And their
their
kids, yeah.
grandchildren. Yeah, like
Yeah.
like this is Canada's going like this, and they're just gonna go like it's just gonna go like that, like real quick. And this is a really harsh reality for a lot of people. If Alberta separates, there's going to be some pain. Our dollar is going to get hit hard. The government is going to run out of money. It already is out of money, but
It's out of money.
it's
It's not only out of money, but it's spent the future generations' money. And then it's also gone into the coffers of all the entitlement benefits, and it's leveraged and spent that too.
yeah, it's going to be Greece 2.0 probably. And whatever Quebec is used to, I think they get like 30 billion a year or something like that.
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's a lot of money.
It's
And
a huge
it's
amount.
and
Yeah,
Quebec has never once paid equalization payments to any other provinces. Not
yeah,
1 year since they've started. They've only ever taken.
yeah. So those days are over, folks. Where they're going to get that money from, they're going to have to print it. That's going to devalue the currency even more. It's going to make your groceries spike through the roof yet again. Cost of goods, cost of vehicles, cost of energy, especially.
I have a
you know
question. Sorry, I have to
yep.
interrupt. Do you know, do you have the chocolate bars? I guess you have them probably up there. Like these 100-gram chocolate bars, like Lindt, like they're really, yeah. Okay. Okay.
I just bought them. They were on sale.
For how much?
$5 each, or no, $5 for two.
Two
That's how
for
much
$5.
two for $5. Yeah,
Okay.
on sale.
In Quebec, because I like chocolate.
Yeah.
I don't have much of a sweet tooth, but I like chocolate. In Quebec,
Mhm.
I used to buy those chocolate bars when they would be on sale,
Yeah.
for 2 for $4. I would be able to
Uh-huh.
get that.
Yeah.
Now, in almost every grocery store I go to,
Hmm.
they're between $6 and $7 each, and I haven't seen them on sale once in I don't even know how long years, maybe.
Oh yeah.
That's how much groceries are costing.
Yeah.
I don't think Americans understand how the cost has skyrocketed. Like people
No.
can't survive anymore. And I don't need chocolate to survive, but it's just an example. That's now a luxury item.
Yeah. I posted a photo on my page last week. I went to the grocery store, 2 steaks, $85. like for 2 steaks. I'm like, and my caption was hunting is not optional anymore. It's mandatory. Like, thank
Yeah.
God I live in a place where I can hunt, right?
Yeah.
So it's yeah, man. I don't know. It ain't looking pretty. And I'm so like when I see these people ranting and raving online about independence and Trump, and like I have nothing in common with them. I like
No.
whatsoever. And I don't recognize them. They're a passive aggressive, whiny, rude, just really selfish uh culture. It seems like to me that they don't care about anything other than getting their way and having control over everyone else around them. And I don't understand it. Like, I don't want to control people. I don't want to force them to be my way of life. All I want is just to be left alone. That's it. And they won't stop. So
No, they won't stop. And I mean, I really saw this kind of ugliness in other people during the COVID regime,
oh
because
yeah.
then they were able to, like, it was people who maybe were always lying in wait, just really wanting to exert control. But with the COVID regime, they finally had the ability and the backing of the state to be able to accost a stranger about trying to force them to cover their face,
Yeah.
about asking personal medical information,
They were
demanding it,
emboldened.
demanding it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not safe unless I have your personal medical information and you have to give it to me.
Yeah.
And just their glee with shutting down businesses and then wrapping that all in a bow of helping other people in the greater good. Like,
Yeah.
I saw a level of wickedness that I just thought, like, before that, I just thought, oh, these progressive types, they honestly think they're doing better for other people, and they're low information. They've been indoctrinated. I had a lot more empathy towards them. And that changed during the COVID regime when I realized that they would be happy to destroy my life to get what they
They
wanted.
took joy in it. Yeah.
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 And they would
And
feel righteous doing it.
yeah. And yeah, they were emboldened for sure. And yeah, I don't know. It's really a hard thing to see for me, because it's like I said, I know there's still good people out there, and they're just as trapped as we are. And I've been making videos about that too. I made one the other day, come west, come north, because
Oh, somebody sent
honestly,
me that.
no,
Somebody
yeah.
sent me that. Yeah.
Yeah,
It was a great video.
yeah.
It
And
was very, very encouraging.
yeah, because it's like, just stop wasting your time fighting this battle. It's too late, man. It's too late. The party's over. Why would they ever give up power to the citizenry? Why would they ever, stop collecting billions of dollars in taxes and wasting it? And you know what? There's absolutely no incentive for them to do the right thing. It's like I
No.
said at the beginning of this video, the days of the government being nice are over. They are over for good, and we have no rights to protect ourselves from that. So 1+1 = socialist sewer.
Yeah.
Really, that's really what it boils down to. So
I think in a way it's good, like what's happening in BC. We should wrap up soon, but
sure,
I think what's happening in BC with the
the
property
land
rights,
claims. Yeah,
yeah, I think that will really increase enthusiasm for Alberta separation. I mean, I can't imagine being a homeowner in a place where already we don't have actual property rights in Canada. Canadians oftentimes don't understand this. I don't even know how many people I've had to uh, compel to read the Constitution and the Charter so that they can see with their own eyes that we do not have protected property rights. So we already didn't have them, but now to basically have your property being given away, like,
yeah.
and not having a secure title, it's
Or even
just
or even a say in the matter, right? Like
Yeah.
imagine you bought like a $1.5 million bungalow, and now it's just like nobody's going to buy that, man. You are stuck. That is not an
Yeah.
investment anymore. It just became a permanent liability. Like,
An albatross. Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, that's going to take a lifetime to pay off, right? So what are you going to do, right? And you're right. It's going to trigger some serious conversations, but again, the judiciary's captured. You know, there is no constitutional rights. You know what's crazy is it was uh, Justin's father actually tried to put property rights in the charter multiple times because he was a gun guy, right? And all the people around him talked him out of it, and whatever. Like that really would have been a game changer. At least from what the what the ability of the government would be, able to do right now. But I don't know,
Well,
maybe not.
I just think that whole charter is a piece of trash, to be honest. I mean, under common law, we had more rights before the charter than after. So,
Yeah, yeah, and
um, I think it was a deliberate effort to, destroy the country, but maybe I'm
presented as
cynical.
it was a Trojan horse. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was. Oh, this was so awesome, but really, we're just consolidating absolute power in the PMO's office, and yeah, I encourage people. What I would like to see, my personal dream in my heart of hearts is I would like to see Quebec leave. I'd like to see Newfoundland leave, and then I would like to see a Western Republic leave, and basically, we could not only develop a new constitution for those nations, but develop a template for the other Commonwealth nations around the world to follow in our footsteps. So we could start helping people like the UK, Australia, New Zealand follow in our footsteps. We could liberate,
Liberate them from their,
yeah,
yeah.
but
Reclaim the West.
yeah. So,
Western
oh yeah,
civilization, I mean, not just Western Canada.
yeah, because we all are subject to the same flawed legal framework. And that's why the shit is happening here is same shit is happening in New Zealand, same in Australia. That's why the UK is imploding right now, because we don't have the United States Constitution. It's really the bottom line. And we're all completely and totally vulnerable to hyper immigration, to change the vote demographics, to literally change the people of the country. And it's never going to stop. So
No, it won't. I mean, the progressives need the voting blocks, and they're going to keep mass importing voters for life, and then that's it. There's no real election. It's just an
yeah,
exercise in futility.
yeah, I agree.
So why don't you explain to people, you mentioned you'd wanted to promote Paul's Pizza.
Yeah, so I've been to help out with independence. I'm going to start doing these giveaways. I'm working with an Alberta t-shirt company next. We're going to have some cool swag, I think, some flags and maybe some hoodies and shirts and stuff I'm looking at. I use my Elon Musk money
What's
every month.
Oh,
He says,
I make almost no money on X, and I have tens of millions of posts a year. Like it's very frustrating.
yeah, I don't know what happened, but like since like November, like January, I think I got $1,400 US. Yeah, that's what I said. I don't even have a very
Oh,
big account, right?
yeah, that never happens to me. I mean,
So
if I can cover the cost of X Premium, I'm happy. It's funny
yeah,
because people think I'm making all this money doing this. It literally all it does, my advocacy work, is put a big target on me and cost me time and money. I do it because I'm passionate. It's time away from work where I'm actually making money.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I care. I care enough to do it. I'm doing my best.
yeah. I know that people on YouTube make like a heck of a lot more. I started a YouTube channel just for fun. I don't know. I just,
It's hard to get monetized though. I got into YouTube like only recently and Rumble, and it's very hard to build a base. Like it wasn't very hard for me to build a big following on X. It's not
Mhm.
the same with YouTube and Rumble in my experience, but I'm hopeful that they'll grow.
Well, I'm a super busy guy. I don't have time to dedicate to social media. So I just do what I can whenever I have a spare moment. I'm on the
Yeah.
fly. I'm always tweeting,
Yeah.
and
It's time
anyways,
consuming. It's a labor of
no,
love.
especially with the videos, right? Because you got to edit them and everything. It's a big job.
Yeah, if I
Um,
didn't have to do any production, I could be a
Mhm.
prolific creator because I love having conversations with people. And if I could just show up and have a conversation and leave and everything else was taken care of, then that would be great. But unfortunately, I have to do my own post production. So sometimes it takes me weeks to have the time to be able to get everything uploaded and captioned and whatever. And I just, yeah, that's why
Yeah.
people who do it full time.
Yeah. Anyways, the Pulse Pizza guys, they were really
Oh,
good
yeah.
during COVID. They were like, trying to let people who were unvaccinated come in still, and they were going against all the health regulations, and they've been picked on by the woke zombies for a while now, and they have a regular sign up session every week where people can come down and sign up for the referendum, and all the looky-loos were bad mouthing them, trying to cancel them or whatever. And I saw it and I was like, you know what, screw you. So I called the owners up. I said, hey, let's have a pizza giveaway. And then so I bought 10 $50 gift certificates, and then Jeff Rath, he doubled the prize pool. So I just gave out 20 free dinners to some lucky Albertan families and independent supporters.
That's
And
amazing.
yeah. And so a lot of people are like, what the hell, you're from the Yukon, why did you do this? Man, because this is the key to unlock freedom. This is it, guys. And you know, especially businesses, like I'm a business owner. Any business out there willing to stick their neck out under the current regime, you got to have their back every time. You gotta
Yes.
show them that you're not going to cancel us. You're going to be rewarded for promoting freedom. And yeah, I think so. Alberta Teas Company now is the next one I'm going to do.
You know what? Just one sec. Okay, talk.
Yeah,
I'm just going to go into my kitchen to get something because I'm very bad with names and I want to
sure.
promote a patriotic company. So talk to the
Okay.
people.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, so it's going to be Alberta Teas. And I sent them some graphics, and I think I want to do maybe some Yukon Strong shirts, some Yukon Strong hoodies, some Alberta Independence hoodies, and stuff. We'll have to see how much it'll all cost, but I'm just going to use, like I said, my Elon Musk money, and then we'll hand out some free stuff for some more lucky patriots, and try to keep the momentum going, because one of the best, I think one of the keys to any movement is just something happening, right? You just don't want to let it die. What's this? Trigger happy.
I'm back. It's called Resistance Coffee.
Okay, sure.
Okay, and they have different types. I love the packaging. I
Strong
love
and
that
free.
strong and free. They have different just
That's Alberta's slogan, Fortis et Libre.
I think they're in Saskatchewan though, but
Okay.
they're great. And
Hi, Kitty.
oh,
You
came
gotta help
by.
her. Yeah.
They're liberty minded people. They're good people, and the coffee's delicious. So I recommend. It's roasted in Canada, to get some Canadian products.
Mhm.
And I'm open to people, sending me information about patriots,
Sure.
and so that I can support them locally. It's hard to even find the sometimes,
Mhm. Well, yeah, Paul's Pizza, it's the one in Airdrie, and I called them. It's a
I've
mother
been
and a
to
son.
Airdrie.
Yeah, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I used to live in Calgary, so I
Okay.
got family all over Alberta.
Yeah, me too.
Um,
Well, not
but
all over. But
yeah, oh, yeah, I got my cousin. He lives up north, and my aunties and uncles, they live in Calgary, and then my other aunties and uncles, they live around Red Deer, Penhold, all around there. So I've got a bit of a spread. My best friend in the whole world lives in Medicine Hat. Um, and yeah, but you're right. We got to help these companies. So maybe after this t-shirt stuff, I'll reach out to those guys and see what they want to do. Everybody likes
those are
coffee,
good.
so
Everybody loves coffee. It's delicious coffee, and they're on X, so you can find them.
cool.
Yeah.
Okay, well, anything else, or should we wrap it up? We went
No,
for
I
quite a
think we
while
should
here.
wrap it. This is the longest interview I've ever done. I usually run about an hour, but
Oh, wow.
you like to talk, and I like to talk, and it's been a while that we haven't got caught up with each other. You know?
It doesn't feel like work to me. I'll be happy to come on anytime, Natasha. So
Yeah. No, I love. You know, it can get discouraging living in Quebec for patriots. There's actually a Quebecer who's made some comments. I see on this side, don't forget to pay revenue, Quebec, your fair share of extra revenue. Yeah,
oh my God.
they'll get in
Yeah.
there. They'll get in
Yeah.
there. And he had a question. The Alberta independence movement should consider some sort of bonds to support the new state. That's a cool idea too.
Yeah, I suppose they could do that, but the APP has gone down and met with the Trump administration already, and they're open to supporting up to a $500 billion line of credit right now to help Alberta get established on its feet. So
Hooah!
yeah, exactly. Or maybe, sorry, it might not be 500 billion. I think it's 500 million. I can't remember, but it's
Well, that's
it's
a big
enough.
difference.
Yeah. It's a huge chunk of money. I
Yeah.
can't remember, but that's all just pie in the sky. Honestly, Alberta, it doesn't need anything right now. It just needs to get the monkey off its back and keep its own money. That's all that needs to happen.
Yeah,
So
it's exciting just to think about it. Like, yeah, sorry, what I was going to say before is like it can get very discouraging living in the East, even though there are enclaves. Like, actually, one of the most conservative ridings in Canada is in Ontario, and it's all like it was like a place of refuge during COVID when I could go there to just be around normal people.
yeah.
Lots of hunters, very self-sufficient people, very kind, very community oriented. You know, there you have a problem, you're living rural, they'll help, they'll drop everything, come and help you. Very kind of understated people, but really good people. But yeah, it can be discouraging being, you know, so close to Mordor, which is what I call Ottawa, and just the same mentality. And this movement is something to get excited about because if it works for Alberta, then it can become, you know, a little Canada, you know, for Canadian refugees, for patriotic refugees.
Yeah, and I think it will. I think I think it's really going to come down to the wire now, like with this Alberta Next thing, because she put all these other questions on, and just watch. They're going to probably put the independence question like on the back of the ballot or some. They're going to play every dirty game they
When is
possibly can.
hers?
It's the same day. This is what I'm saying. It was October 19th, and now she's putting her own referendum all of a sudden with all the issues that all the separatists are pissed off about. That's what my video was about. It's an
Oh my
open
God.
attempt to sabotage it. Yeah. But honestly,
I didn't understand it was on the same day. That kind of
this is the whole thing. It's like, and none, and this is why I'm okay. I guess maybe my video didn't explain it very well because
most people probably would have known that. I just didn't know. I didn't. I can't. There's so much tyranny to cover in Canada that I miss. Sometimes I miss major things. It's just
the
it's
rabbit hole's too
constant.
deep.
Yeah.
It's too crazy. But
Yeah.
the bottom line is on the Bill of Rights, there should have been a referendum. No, here it is. Here's your rights. We're going to tell you what your rights are. But now all these issues that are like just societal issues that she has the power to act on right now without a referendum. They don't need a referendum to fix this.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden she wants it on a referendum, and she wants it on the same day.
The same day. Man, oh man, oh man, Danielle.
Yeah.
She's doing you dirty.
She's not one of us. I don't believe, and which is really disappointing to me because, you know, it's an opportunity to set the people free, and like if she was on board, she would be the first president. She's very popular.
Yeah. She's very smart. She's measured. You know, she's easy to respect, but that's so disappointing, really.
But she's also in favor of hyper immigration. She's expanded the size of government.
Yeah, and she panders. She panders. She'll put on the costumes and pander away. So that goes to me. That goes to integrity.
Yeah.
You know.
And she's running a deficit. How the hell are you running a deficit in Alberta right now? A huge deficit too. And the whole reason for that is she's politically held hostage by the bureaucracy and the Edmonton socialists too. Is I said
Yeah.
the first day she got in, she should have just scattered the NDP to the four corners of Alberta. Say, okay, we're going to move this woke department to like, northern Alberta. If you don't want to move to the new office, you can quit. But if you want to move there, you can. And then for everywhere else that you can't move, you implement performance metrics. You have to start
Move it to
saving
high
money.
level. Move it
Yeah,
to high
yeah,
level
yeah, yeah,
and see
yeah.
who's serious.
Yeah, and tough luck. You don't want to make the commute. We understand. We'll keep your mind keep you in mind for the future, and then you
No
implement
shade
a
on
hiring
anybody
freeze.
from high level. It's not,
Yeah,
that's not.
no, no. All those tiny towns around, they're beautiful.
Yeah, they are.
What?
But I just know the type that works
Yeah.
for government. They don't want to live there.
No,
They don't want to
no.
live anywhere where they have relative liberty.
Yeah, but they should have done that in the first 6 months. Then everybody would have been mad about it, and by now it would be forgotten. And you would have cut the size of the government, and you'd have an absolute. You'd have drained the swamp, right? But instead, here we are. So it's gonna come down to the wire, and it's gonna be the fence sitters that are gonna decide this.
Yeah.
And Ottawa hasn't really pushed back yet. The media is
No,
definitely
no.
starting to push back.
Yeah, the media is getting in and it
Yeah,
will be an onslaught and they will do
yeah,
everything possible to convince deranged people that, the US will invade and take over and all sorts of nonsense. I can only
no,
imagine the
yeah,
narratives they're going to come up with. There's going to be something rhymey or like,
yeah, yeah.
elbows
Price
up.
on pollution. Yeah, we're all in this together. We're all in this together. Famous quote by Mao, by the way. Most people don't know that.
Even when
Uh,
I hear it, like there's certain things like using the word fringe, it gives me flashbacks. We're all in this together. Ça va bien aller. All of it
yeah,
just,
PTSD. Yeah,
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 probably is.
yeah. No, it's no joke. Um, Yeah, we'll see what happens. I have a feeling too that Ottawa, especially if independence, the polls start showing a clear threshold has been met, they're going to probably try to get the Supreme Court. They're going to
Yeah,
try to do
yeah,
the
they
lawfare. They're
will.
going to try. But at the end of the day, if the referendum passes, what are you going to do? You have people that want out, and I think the United States will step in at that point and say, nope, they want out. You're not going to force them. And it's just so crazy to me because these people they insult the Albertans. They hate the culture.
Rednecks, rednecks. It's always
Yeah,
rednecks.
yeah,
I hear
yeah.
about Alberta rednecks. I'm
The
like, I
ditch
want to be a
billies.
redneck. I wish
Yeah,
I was a
trailer
redneck.
trash. They hate these people, but it's like it's not enough to like hate them. Now you're gonna force them to stay.
Yeah,
Like if you hate them, why don't you want them gone? Because the minute Alberta's gone, it means endless liberal governments. Like if you're a woke psychopath, this is like your dream come true. You'll never have to worry about another conservative government again. That's it. It's over. And um, you know, now you don't have to put up with people who you disagree with anymore. They're gone. Like it's win-win for everybody. I don't
yeah.
get it, but it's about that control. It's about, like you said, the glee in the torment, right? And we got to do it. So I'm all in.
Well,
And
if you want to have, like, I don't love having panels because I like having more in-depth one-on-one conversations, but it might make sense in the context of Alberta separation. If ever you want to have a panel on, I'm not
sure.
sure like I know Marty's being vocal and Keith, I guess you mentioned he's been vocal about it. I don't know
But
if Bruce is vocal or not, but anybody you want to have on,
yeah,
they'd be welcome to join in a
I,
panel
I
discussion.
I'd be down with anyone too who's against it. I'd be happy to have that debate. Like let's do it.
Nobody ever says yes, but we could ask anybody. I'll have a conversation with anybody, really.
Yeah,
So
it,
I've asked people before who are on the opposite sides of issues, and they never say yes
yeah.
to coming
They're not
on.
they're
And I'm
not used to
nice. I'm nice.
no. They're not used to intelligent rednecks. That's why it's scary, right? Because now the spotlight's on and you got to perform, and it's like right on. This is my chance to like blow your brain. Come on, let's go, let's go.
Yeah.
I just love it. Oh, but No, for them it's like, oh my God, can we change the language in here? This is I'm
Yeah,
feeling
I wouldn't.
trauma.
Yeah.
I'm feeling trauma,
I feel unsafe. You make me feel unsafe.
Yeah. Can we change your language? No, Karen, you're not tone policing me. Sorry, sweetheart,
Yeah.
But no,
Yeah, so that could be good.
the number one thing you guys can do to help Alberta is get your own independence movement out east, because if Quebec starts being a threat to leave too, all eyes on Ottawa will immediately switch to Quebec, and Alberta will fly under the radar. So do what you can to help Quebec independence. Make it real, make it a true movement to save the Quebecois culture.
Quebec
And
independence though only comes up
well, I saw they
usually
won a riding though, didn't they? They just won a riding out there. I saw the
uh
video. They were all celebrating.
they're probably, I think the next provincial election, I would
Hmm.
not be surprised if the separatists win.
Yes. Yes.
But the thing is, usually when they win provincially, then federally the appetite for separatism goes down.
Mm.
It's not always it's not always, it doesn't always make sense.
Try to get a referendum in October. That would be the
Oh,
icing on the
I
cake.
have no energy for this. I would
Yeah.
just be trapped. I would not be able to leave. I'd be trapped in an even worse
Oh, yeah.
place.
Okay. Okay. Well,
Yeah,
I'll
they would just I don't know. They would just take everybody's assets. Like I don't know how they could make it worse, but they'd find a way. I know
well,
I'm not throwing shade on patriots, that there might be like Quebec sovereigntists who actually have conservative values, but the ones that I've met and known in real life are overwhelmingly, like over 90% are the
mhm.
most ardent communists
Ugh.
around.
Well, the thing is that you have to remember, though, in the event of a successful referendum,
Yes.
the
See,
existing
he wrote, somebody added, I find we get some really crazy leftists when we start talking independence. That's the
just
Quebec
send them my
situation.
way, link them my account, link them
And
my content.
Eric
We'll
said
get
CAC is down in the polls. PQ will likely win. Yeah, the PQ are the Parti Québécois, the separatists. Yeah. So,
what does CAC stand for?
uh,
Something.
Coalition Avenir du Québec. It's
Okay.
Legault's group.
Okay.
Another COVID regime tyrant.
Oh, and he's the
We
leader of the
we had
separatists.
curfews. No,
What,
the CAC is not.
who's
The
who's the
PQ is.
separatist party? PQ.
The PQ, the
Oh, okay.
Parti Québécois.
Awesome.
You can remember because PQ is provincial and BQ
Okay.
is federal. So P like
Gotcha.
province. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, the thing I would just remind anyone out there who is worried about what could happen in the event of a successful referendum is you have to remember the existing government goes out the window. You get a chance to build a completely new system of governments from the ground up. And yeah, there will be some, transfer period there, but it'll mean all new elections, all new political positions, all new political powers, and
All new
the
political possibilities, all new
correct.
policy possibilities.
I can tell you that, yes, it certainly runs the risk of abuse, but I think if you have a united people that all agree that what's going on now is not acceptable and it's not working, they're going to push for something new and better and different that is in their favor, not the government's favor. So,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
um,
Especially with Albertans. They're not taking anything at this point. They're fed up.
no, it's awesome to watch, man. Like my feed has just got so much positivity now. Like before, it was just doom and gloom and
Yeah.
sadness and outrage, and it's just like I got my first signature today. It's like a little old lady, in the middle of nowhere, and then like 2 days later, she's like, I got 52 signatures now, and I'm like, 52, lady? Like you only need like 20. If everybody does like 20, that's like halfway there. You know what I mean? And there's people who have gotten over 1,000. People have gotten like 500. So they're going to meet the threshold, but that's just the opening barrage. The real battle will begin after that, and it's going to get ugly.
It'll get bold.
Yeah.
It'll get bold.
Hold
All
my beer.
right.
Let's do it. Yep.
Well, DJ, this is a good conversation. I cover a lot of really hard topics, and this is like an optimistic topic for once.
Yeah. 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 If you ever want me to come back on, just give me a heads up and I'll try and squeeze a
Yeah.
night where I
Let
can
me
chat.
know. Like it won't be for a little while, but
Mhm.
let me know, and maybe if you want to do a panel, it might be fun.
Sure.
But just send me the names you would want me to reach out to, and I'll do that.
Yeah. And thank you for letting me blather on.
I like
And
talking to you.
yeah, no, I like talking to you too. And
Yeah.
I feel really bad to hear some of the things that you've told me, how life is out there and what's going on. You know,
Gotta be tough.
it's, it's,
It's
I want,
demoralizing.
I want to turn it around for everyone. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And,
Canada should be the wealthiest country on the planet. We
the
should be
Canadian
just,
citizen. Yeah.
it should
It's,
be amazing.
it's like I said, we're sitting on a pile of treasure. We
Yeah.
literally are.
Yeah.
So we gotta
Right.
start going into the mines and digging up some gold. It's not rocket science. Let's do it.
On that note,
Okay.
take good care of yourself, and we will be in touch soon.
Okay. Thanks, Natasha.
Okay. Bye. Bye. It's still going.